great nation, eating pork in every one of our 50 states. Join me on my cross-country odyssey as I make our forefathers proud, reveling in life, liberty, and the pursuit of pork.
You can really taste the cooked pork. This stuff is fantastic. I'm a big salt fan.
Let's pork! We're tasting prime pork dishes in every state in the Union, and I couldn't be more excited for this once-in-a-lifetime tour. You're going to be right here with me, seeing everything I do and watching every pork I taste. I'm Jim Haggerty. You know me as the host of Today Now, but I've also eaten in a ton of restaurants. Now I'm heading out on the road. My mission? Find the best pork our country has to offer.
Watch Jim Haggerty's Porkin' Across America at youtube.com/The Onion.
This is the Onion News Network.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. 603-283-6160 is the number for you to call to bring up whatever's on your mind. 603-283-6160. You can call in with any topic you want. It doesn't have to be what we're talking about, or you can comment on what we're saying, tell us you vehemently disagree. It doesn't matter. It's Free Talk Live. And with you in the studio tonight, it's me, Bonnie,
Elsbeth,
and Jay Noon.
Yep, we have a new host with us tonight. It's my sister Elsbeth, so she hasn't been on before, so please don't be mean to her. I'm just kidding.
Well, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you.
Good to have you.
They're not too mean. So we wanted to start off talking about this shooter in Maine. Jay has some things he wants to say about it. We have this article from Timcast that just basically gives a rundown of what happened for anybody who hasn't heard. It's kind of a bigger news than most shootings to us, because it only happened 3 hours away from us, and we know people that happen to know this person, maybe not exactly, or maybe different degrees of knowing him, like someone's cousin knew him or something like that. And also, it's a little interesting to me because of the fact that this guy was admittedly crazy, and he was a messed up, like, PTSD having veteran, and that's really sad that happens to people. It's terrible. People join the military and they get in wars and they get PTSD because of government wars, and it's terrible. But it just doesn't surprise me that somebody who had an issue like that checks himself into mental institutions might become a shooter.
So I don't know what the number is today, but years ago, and 10, 12 years ago, as Adam Kokesh was talking a lot about, the problems with the military. He did a lot of counter recruiting. He would go to these recruitment places, and he'd be like, tell kids, hey, listen, you don't want to go into the military. You're just going to be there fighting rich man's wars. You just all the stuff that he did in Iraq, and it was like and when you have PTSD, Adam Kokesh talks about how 3 out of the 5 meds that they put him on, the side effects were suicide. And,
wow.
These are these SSRIs. Maybe somebody could look up real quick what SSRI stands for. I forget.
Serotonin. I don't know what it's 2 S's. It's serotonin reuptake inhibitor.
Okay.
I don't remember why there's 2 S's. There's probably I'm missing a letter, but it basically makes it to where your brain is filled with serotonin instead of
lack of serotonin.
Yeah, instead of having a lack of it.
Yeah, it's selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor.
Okay, all right.
Selective.
So anyways, and the thing is this is just so back then, it was 12 years ago, it was something like 18 or 22 veterans a day were committing suicide in the United States of America. And I was having a conversation with somebody today, and they told me 25. And another guy yesterday, we were just talking about veterans or whatever, and he's like, yeah, it's almost 30. I don't know what it is right now, but there's all different reports. But one thing I can say is a lot of guys that go into the military, and they go do these things over in Afghanistan. And let's face it, Afghanistan, basically all Afghanistan was a really convenient place for the American government, the CIA, the DEA to basically take over some land and extract a whole bunch of minerals called lithium, but also to grow tons of opium or to grow poppy to create opium. It was, and you can go newspaper article after newspaper article how the heroin output increased like 10,000% or 8,000% as soon as Afghanistan became occupied. So,
and this is also getting a little conspiracy on my end, but they left a whole bunch of crazy weapons there, like a huge amount of weapons there, and a lot of people are saying those just went straight to Hamas and directly impacted them being able to attack Israel.
Oh, absolutely. And the whole Hamas-Israel thing, as far as I'm concerned, is just another inside job. There was a border conveniently closed up,
right.
And of course, the higher-ups in the Israeli government, and the higher-ups in all of the governments want this war. The military-industrial complex wants this stuff. And the best way to arm and even like the whole thing was weapons of mass destruction. When 30 years ago, 44 years old now, but I was a young teenager with the whole Gulf War situation happening. Started in like the early 90 or 89. And it was like, oh, these guys got weapons of mass destruction. And, well, how do we know we have them? Well, we sold them to them. Or, we armed, basically everybody that America arms a decade later or, a half a decade later, they become some kind of enemy or, shortly after these weapons are showing up. But the thing is when these guys go serve in a military and like, one of my best friends, Special Forces, he was in Afghanistan. And his job was to basically go and they would give a name and identification of some farmer who refused to grow poppy, who refused to be part of the opium, the heroin trade.
Wow.
And because these guys wanted to grow wheat, or they wanted to grow, some kind of food or grain or whatever. And Afghanistan is like a very, very fertile place to head. He's got pictures of all kinds of these like very high-end irrigation systems. Like everything was top notch. And the farmers that didn't comply, they were ones that were called terrorists, and all those people in Afghanistan were doing was just fighting an invading force. And so basically, the U.S. goes in there, destroys the place, creates a whole bunch of fatherless children, wreaks havoc. There's depleted uranium probably everywhere. I know it was a big thing in Afghanistan. I mean, Iraq. There was 500,000 children killed. And the thing with Palestine. Basically, the average age of the Palestinian, from what I understand, is 17 years old. And there's like 2.3 million people there. So there's like 1 million children that they're basically looking at genocide, best I can tell. And, all these governments are bad. Like all these people want to, defend Israel. And, that's horrible. These people in Israel have gotten attacked. And they should be looking at their own government just the same way the people who were in the Twin Towers when they got, murdered on 9/11. They should be looking at, the U.S. government and its involvement in it. And there's just so much evidence that, NORAD was down, this thing was down, this thing wasn't working. It goes back and forth. And we're hearing all kinds of stuff about the most secure border in the world, this, 5-mile border, Gaza and Israel. And everybody went, home for 7 or 8 hours. And like and these people come in with, U.S. munitions. And on this kamikaze mission basically is what it was. These Palestinians, and I put that in quotes because we don't know who they are.
Right.
These guys. But I've been studying a lot of like child psychology for the past couple of years. I'm writing this Invest in Our Posterity lecture series, and I'm telling people we got to stop creating algorithmic slaves, get our kids off internet devices. And if you look at what the Palestinian has been going through for their entire lives, that's 20 years old. The average Palestinian's 18 years old, basically. So their entire lives, these guys know nothing but war and mayhem. I mean, It is an S-hole over there. And it is an S-hole for many, many, many reasons. Why are those people there? I don't even know. Right? And why are the Israelis there?
A lot of them are trapped there, which is so weird.
That's what it seems like. I've never been there, so I really don't know. Max Egan.
They have borders on all sides of this small area that is Gaza, and now that the bombing happened, they're definitely trapped there. But even before then, it was very difficult to immigrate out.
Yeah. So it's about impossible to leave Gaza. For years, I've been seeing footage and videos of, kids throwing rocks at tanks and IDF soldiers, in full combat, with, the latest and greatest weapons and technology, mostly thanks to the United States and, European
Right, the United States,
money.
And every politician seems to think it's like really important to give a bunch of money to Israel.
Yes, yeah. So
even before this.
Yeah, and that's always been a thing. So Israel is like the 5th largest economy in the world, or 15th. I might have that number wrong, but the amount of I remember 20 some odd years ago studying this that Israel is getting like $15 billion a year in financial aid, like years ago, maybe 15 years ago, but it was like $15 billion. And what is financial aid? Financial aid is when you steal money from the people of a wealthy nation, and the poor people of a wealthy nation, and then you give it to rich people of a poorer nation. And the United States of America obviously has more wealth than Israel, from what I can tell, or did back then. I assume that's true. I guess if you take the debt to asset ratio of the United States corporation, they're really not wealthy because they have $3 trillion almost in debt. And it's just going up and up and up. And so, if a guy lives in a big, $200 million mansion, but he has, a $300 million note on it, is he really wealthy?
Right.
Versus the guy that lives in a $100,000 house and owes $20,000 on it.
Yeah. And doesn't have a bunch of debt for a bunch of yachts and toys or whatever.
But,
as far as the mental health of soldiers goes, one thing I thought was so crazy is my little brother, he's in the Air Force. He has a night shift, like he works at night on helicopters and stuff like that. He does something where he works on the mechanics of helicopters and stuff. And he's just in the United States. He's not like in a war or anything. He works at night. He went to the nurse lady telling her, I seriously can't get myself to sleep in the daytime when I'm supposed to be sleeping. I need like a drug to help me sleep. She prescribed him something. He starts taking it, and it was antidepressants. He said that's what they just give everyone, so he stopped taking it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, why would you get antidepressants for not being able to sleep?
Because they love pushing that stuff. It makes good money. There's the psychiatrists and all those people involved. They're all
makes so much
paid.
sense that you would give a drug like that to people in the military, and that they would really want people in the military to have that. Because if you are a psychopath, which these things basically make people psychopaths, there's all these side effects, and even the effect that it's supposed to have, making you numb, basically. It's not that it just gives you a bunch of serotonin and you're like, ooh, I'm on happy pills and I'm crazy happy. It makes it to where you're numb, basically. Like normal things that make people excited will make you like, oh, okay, whatever. But but at least I'm not depressed. Anyways, it makes sense that makes people psychopaths to just not really care.
And we can totally direct people, like, especially from a young age. So if you look at, let's say, a Palestinian right now that's 22 years old, and if you go backwards in time 25 years, let's say, what Palestine has been dealing with, it's been chaos like for 50 years over there. It's been major chaos for the last 25 years. There's always like something's going on. There's always bombings. There's like, I guess the Israeli Defense Force patrols all over Palestine, and like you have to have like, there's always checkpoints to go through. You can't go more than a couple blocks.
Oh my God.
So there's a major grip on that country. And the thing is, with what I've been studying, if you really want to, if you have the ability to have the attention of a child for, 15 years and do whatever you want to them, you could totally make, kamikaze suicide soldiers out of the average
Psychopaths,
kid. Yeah, you could totally create them to do that. You could morph them. Now they have these technology. They got like all these drugs that they use and these antidepressants and what we understand about the brain. And now we have AI literally programming. The fact that so many young ladies, good looking, young 20-something-year-old women, like literally can't find a boyfriend because the boys, especially in Japan, are not interested in women because their sexual desire has been programmed essentially by the internet for that of whatever out there on the internet and AI. Like I believe AI is going to, drive men crazy. So we have all this technology that can program people with, and I just, like these people who like got in these, little, I don't know what you call the little plane things that they drove over in or flew over the border.
The Hamas people? I don't know what had or what they used.
You see them flying around. They got like what I understand is the ones with a parachute and they got like a little motor. They're like
I've never seen it, honestly. I didn't hear anything about that.
But anyways, they did a kamikaze mission across the border. They flew in these like basically things got like a motorcycle engine on it and a blade, and it's got a parachute. And it flies, and you can fly them a few 100 foot off the ground, maybe even a few thousand feet. I see people fly them now and then.
Wow.
And
heard of that.
ultralights, they're called.
Oh.
So anyways, they basically parachuted in on these ultralights, which like you could build for not much money or you can buy. They're pretty inexpensive. They're really easy to build. The most expensive thing's probably the parachute to come up with. And, who were these guys? How old were they? What were their lives like? Who was programming them?
Yeah.
Just same thing with their shooter. Who programmed him? What's his deal?
As we just learned, he was in the military, so he was obviously programmed by the United States military to become a psychopath and to have
sounds like it.
Be an order follower and to have no, personality of his own. And then he also checked himself into a mental institution just last summer, apparently. According to the internet.
Who was the guy that you were saying was going around to the schools and like telling kids, hey, don't sign up?
His name is Adam Kokesh. He does a show called, he used to do a show called Adam versus the Man, and he's really cool. One thing that was great that he was doing was getting vets with PTSD to take mushrooms.
Right.
He was healing people.
I was just going to say, what if he was, taking mushrooms before all that happened?
No, he did
not
it.
like that made him like go crazy, but like what if that could have helped him and prevented all that?
Yeah, that guy. If he went to some place where Adam Kokesh was, preaching to him about freedom and peace and giving him mushrooms, he'd probably be not shooting people, but instead he went to a regular doctor probably and got probably SSRIs for all we know.
So a friend of mine sent me this message today, and it says apparently my dad was hunting not far from there. Talking about
in Maine,
Lewiston, Maine, and his friends know the guy. He has a twin brother, I guess. Supposedly, he's a convicted pedophile, an Army Ranger, and mentally out of it. Also said that there were unmarked cruisers on the property, the family property. Talking about this, the shooter's family property, before he went on his killing spree.
Wow.
And
what were they doing there at his house?
Yeah, before it even happened.
Not
who
stopping
knows?
him.
I mean, the government is always looking to incite and create reasons to panic and scare people and get the all the gun grabbers all riled up. And the real solution is it's too bad there wasn't some armed people inside that mall, inside that area, or maybe they were and they just fled. I mean, if I hear shots going off and I'm right next to a door and I got my wife and kids with me and I carry all the time, probably just gonna just walk away at my wife and kids. I'm not looking to go die.
Yeah, be a hero.
And but if if the guy came in my direction or was put me in a corner or put me I wasn't an exit, then I would have to do something about it. But
you'd be able to.
But another problem with Maine is I didn't know this until I just read some messages. But Maine is like that you have to retreat.
Right, I didn't know that either. I was wondering when I first started hearing about a shooting there, I was thinking, you don't really hear about shootings in Maine very often, at least not like mass shooting like this. I think 12 people died, or it says dozens died. But anyways, I started thinking, do they have good gun laws? I honestly didn't know, but the duty to retreat is one of the stupidest laws. It's just
it's like New Jersey, New York City kind of stuff. And so one of the things with Maine, and I was just up in Maine a few weeks ago, and I open carried everywhere, like
nice.
I do here in New Hampshire and in Vermont. And so you can open carry, you can concealed carry. They essentially have constitutional carry, but there's a whole bunch of restrictions. Like you can't carry in an establishment that serves alcohol. You can't carry in this type of establishment and that type. I don't know the whole list, but a guy kind of rattled them off to me. So like New Hampshire has one of the best because New Hampshire doesn't have any of those, restrictions. But I wonder, was this mall a gun-free zone? Because we know that like 97% of mass shootings happen in gun-free zones. We also know that something like, I don't know if it's the same amount of percent of mass shootings are by someone who is on an SSRI.
Yep. And it just wouldn't surprise me at all if this guy was. This from Timcast, it says that NBC's, because if you don't know it, we're talking about it all, just a little bit of info about what happened at the shooting. It said NBC cited a police source who said at least 22 people had been killed, with another 50 to 60 people injured in the shootings. And the Associated Press reported that at least 10 people were killed. Maine State Police issued an alert around 8:25 p.m. warning of an active shooter in Lewiston, the state's second largest city. Authorities advised residents to remain in their homes with the doors locked. And the police issued a photo of a suspect who was wearing navy cargo pants, a brown hoodie, and tan boots. It's just like, whenever people are military and they he's been out of the military for a few years and he's walking around looking like a military guy. There's unmarked police cruisers at his house. He checked himself into a mental health facility just a few months ago. It just screams of inside job to me.
Yeah, especially that the cars were there before it even happened.
Right. It's like last night, Elsworth and I heard of this story that happened in the early 1900s in Iowa. I think
it was like 1912 or something like that.
Yeah, this axe murder happened in this town in Iowa where there was literally never a murder before. They went in and killed 8 people, like 6 of them were kids. And what we found out about that was interesting is the government had been having a fight with the power company, so they had turned off all of the lights in the city just that night. And there's just always little things like that that make me think the government's involved with mass shootings because that this was an axe murder. But it would totally make sense for them to be involved with mass shootings, even if you're like, why? Random kids and their parents. Because they want you to be afraid, so that way you think that you need them.
So is there powerful people that will stop at nothing to accumulate more wealth and more power?
Yes.
So those exist. Is there powerful people who want the citizenry to be to be afeared, as
it would
Ernie
benefit
would say?
them.
Is there powerful people that want to disarm the common people in America?
And that would benefit them too, yes.
So do we each know somebody who could probably be coerced, especially if they started working with them at a young age, to be some kind of psychopath to go do something like this?
Absolutely.
I think almost anybody would if you got them from the ages of 0 to 6 years old.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But I can think of people like I grew up with that were like super gullible and, got into drugs and got themselves into trouble and, could be, sort of put into this position. But we know that there is mind control technology, mind altering drugs. We know that there is all kinds of ways to get into people's heads. And with data mining and AI, I'm sure the algorithm and AI, I kind of refer to them as the same entity. I'm sure the algorithm knows who the pedophiles are before the pedophiles even know they're pedophiles based just on their metadata. So if you know somebody that is tweaked and if those people are out there that are crazy enough that are researching this stuff on the internet knows about it. The algorithm knows about it. And are there people within the CIA that want to help make these things happen? I mean, what was the line from V for Vendetta? Show them why they need us. Create this, havoc. Create, and so this is where they, release like these terrible things and allow these bad things to happen, so they can, show government. Government needs to start showing people why they need the government. And so, I believe this is one of those situations again.
I believe it is too, especially when you think of Maine, New Hampshire. They're one of the safer states, and that's why it was kind of shocking when you hear about that. It's not like it's something that happens all the time. Like, sure, there was probably like regular murders that they don't get reported, but mass shootings like this where 60-something people got injured, I feel like that's rare. They have to work on this state to make it seem less safe. 603-283-6160 is the number to call with any of your opinions. 603-283-6160. More coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Join liberty-minded voluntarists, anarchists, and libertarians from June 13th through the 16th for the 8th annual Fork Fest at Rogers Campground in the beautiful White Mountains of New Hampshire. Fork Fest is a fork of the Porcupine Freedom Festival, which has sold out in recent years. Fork Fest happens the weekend before the Porcupine Freedom Festival. Fork Fest is decentralized, which means that there's no ticket cost and no one is in charge. All you have to do to join the fun is reserve your camping site, RV site, or motel room with Rogers Campground for June 13th through the 16th. You can find out more at the unofficial website, forkfest.party. You can also connect with other attendees on the Forkfest Telegram and Matrix chat rooms, as well as the Forkfest Forum. You can find links to those at forkfest.party. We hope to see you there June 13th through the 16th. Forkfest.party.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone. At least 18 people have been killed and another 13 injured in a rampage across parts of the U.S. state of Maine. A manhunt is still underway 24 hours after the incident to find suspect Robert Card, who police describe as a person of interest. Authorities have released pictures of him carrying an assault rifle, entering a restaurant and bowling alley on Wednesday evening. Maine Governor Janet Mills gave an update to reporters.
I'm so deeply saddened, as is every one of the 1.3 million people of this beautiful state. This city did not deserve this terrible assault on its citizens, on its peace of mind, on its sense of security. No city does, no state, no people. No words can truly or fully measure the grief of Maine people today. This is a dark day for Maine. I know it's hard for us to think about healing when our hearts are broken. But I want every person in Maine to know that we will heal together. We are strong, we are resilient, we are a very caring people.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met in Washington on Thursday in a flurry of diplomacy between the two nations. Washington wants China to help make sure the Israel-Gaza conflict doesn't spill over into other countries, and Beijing has expressed a willingness to work together. It's one of the highest-level meetings between officials from two of the global powers at a time of conflict between Israel and Hamas. Washington wants to make sure that doesn't escalate. The US and China have been ramping up diplomacy in recent months after years of testy relations. If all goes well, it could lead to a visit from Chinese President Xi Jinping, who may attend the APEC Leader Summit in San Francisco next month, setting up a meeting on the sidelines with Biden. A woman in the United Kingdom has been found guilty of handing over a 3-year-old girl for female genital mutilation while she was on a trip to Kenya. It's the first time anyone in the UK has been convicted for assisting in the illegal procedure. Stuart Smith has more from London.
The procedure involves removing the clitoris of young girls, and it happened to this 3-year-old in 2006. The defendant responsible for bringing the toddler to the Kenyan clinic said she thought it would only involve an injection. Although a British citizen now, the defendant was born in Somalia, where nearly all girls undergo the procedure. The court heard the victim only revealed to anyone that she was a survivor of FGM when she mentioned it to her secondary school English teacher at the age of 16. The procedure is usually carried out with high secrecy, and the prosecutor said she hoped this successful conviction would encourage more victims of genital mutilation to come forward, safe in the knowledge they'd be believed and supported. Research from 2014 suggested over 130,000 women and girls in England and Wales have undergone the procedure. Stuart Smith, London.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. It's talk radio that you control. 603-283-6160 is the phone number for you to call to get in on this conversation. It's already a pretty interesting night tonight. I've never been on the show, I don't think ever, with Jay New, now that I think of it, but I've talked to him a lot. He definitely likes to talk, but I've never been on the show with him, so it's already very interesting. In the studio with you tonight, you've got Bonnie.
And Joa.
And Jay is here with us. He stepped aside to go take care of something really fast. But Elsbeth stepped out. She was just covering for Joe until he got here. We may have her on more often, but we wanted to get Joa on to talk about today. He had a trial featuring a subpoena that didn't work, but may feature Don Bolduc in the future.
I'll fix that problem, though.
And we're going to be talking about that. Jay's back with us now. But I wanted to go to your phone calls and thoughts first. We have Ridley in New Hampshire. Ridley, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Hey, guys. Hamas and Israel, just kind of like everyone else is talking about. But you know what they're not talking about? Hardly anyone's mentioned this, and you guys may have before, but how much do you know about the extent to which the Israeli government disarms its own people?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, they make them all join the military. Do they not let them have guns otherwise?
They don't let them bring them
Pretty
home.
much. You're not allowed to have a firearm in your possession without a license.
Wow.
Sounds like a
and
safe place.
you're only allowed to have 50 rounds of ammunition, according to those two things, according to the Times of Israel, which recently took advantage of the massacre to publish an article about how great Israeli gun control is.
Wow.
How awesome it is that they have gun control.
Doesn't even
right?
make any sense. I mean, not that a gun...
Yeah.
I don't know if a gun could really help someone flying in on a tricycle and exploding themselves. I'm not sure how a gun could really help you in that situation.
Well, when you have a military as big as Israel per capita, right? If you want to add it per capita, I'm sure it's probably one of the biggest in the world per capita.
Everyone
right?
has to join.
It's very
men and
well
women.
funded.
It's very well funded for sure. I can see why. Like, I'm not supporting gun control, but I can see like their argument in this, and
How
you know
they
what?
trick people into having gun control.
If anything, Ridley, you just gave Hamas some key tips here. That there isn't a gun behind every blade of grass in Israel.
Every sand dune or whatever.
Every sand strand.
Well, this thing. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Sorry, Dave Ridley.
But this thing keeps coming up, right? So we have a war in Ukraine because Ukrainians only 7% of them, only 7% of Ukrainian civilians had a firearm when that thing started. The Ukrainian government sort of had a rush of brains to the head after the war started and loosened its gun laws. And the Israeli government is actually doing the same thing. But this is so much our business because every time one of these countries gets itself into a war because it doesn't have guns, or gets invaded because it doesn't have guns, right? Like in the hands of civilians, that drags the U.S. in, right?
And our president,
no one,
quote unquote, has already said that he is going to defend them and be on their side. He already sent billions of dollars to both sides. Well, I don't know if you call it both sides in this instance. It's Israel and Gaza, but not necessarily Hamas.
Yeah, but no one even talks about this pretty much. This is like there's that saying, freedom's not free, but in a sense, freedom is free. All the government has to do is just stop spending money putting its own people in jail for trying to defend themselves. And the level of defense goes way up because suddenly you've got a firearm in every third house. I mean, you've seen the video from that rave, right? Where I don't know exactly how many people there were. Maybe let's say it was about 300 people at the rave. I couldn't tell for sure from the video, but there should have been 60 or 70 guns in people's pockets at least.
Where is
that rave?
Where is this?
And that should not have been that should not have been a massacre. It should have been a shootout.
Which rave?
Well, there's a music festival that Hamas attacked.
Oh.
Three miles away from the Gaza border, and so you had just huge numbers of Israeli people in this desert environment where it's very easy to tell who the enemy is, right? Because they were all wearing green bandanas or whatever. So it was super easy. It would be much easier than defending against a mass shooting, except for the large number of Hamas people. But there should have been. I mean, those people. There's no reason for them to even run. They should have just all been on the deck, taking prone positions and unloading their firearms on these incoming.
Yeah, they were easy targets.
5 mile an hour parachutes. It would have been easy.
So I haven't seen any videos, but like I've watched lots of ultralights fly. So basically, you could take one of these ultralights, bring it up, sort of high, and kind of glide it. A lot of them, if the wind's like blowing away from you, you can't even hear them, because they're not super loud. You can put mufflers on them, make them quiet. So like if you had any kind of rifle, basically, if you had a open sight 22, you could probably pick these guys off pretty easy. As they were, coming down towards the ground.
So it looks like this, like a little tiny plane?
So I'm thinking the one that has the parachute on it, the ultralight with the parachute. I
hadn't seen a picture or anything, so whenever you guys were talking about this, I was kind of imagining something like a tricycle that has like a glider on top.
So it's basically a tricycle with a snowmobile engine and a big parachute. Are some of them like the ones you just showed me a picture of have the wings? They're a little more high performance. They got to go a little faster, but these parachute ones, like they can pretty much glide really slow, just
like a go-kart with a parachute on top.
Yeah, that's
wow,
Yep,
I found
that's it right there.
Okay, so
that's terrifying.
What do they call that?
That says Easy Flight powered parachutes.
All right.
Yeah, and I actually when I first saw this, like, it was unbelievable, right?
It says powered parachutes. That's what they call them here.
I just felt like right away false flag. Because I was like, how can you just so easily do this? Like,
well, he was saying before you got on, Joa, that the border
That's the most
was
secure
shut down.
border in the world.
And it got shut down. Like, everybody went home.
Yeah, and here's the thing
what are
is
the
that
odds?
there's plenty of military in Israel to start seeing these things and be like, yeah, it's not us.
And they would show up on radar.
And
I feel
unless
like
they were maybe composite, they wouldn't. I guess you could make them sort of ghost.
It's like listen
to the radar.
to all of these examples at once and tell me there's not a pattern. So the axe murder in 1912 in Iowa that I brought up last segment, the government just happened to turn all the street lights out that night. And also this Hamas bombing in Israel, the government just so happened to take a break on the border that night. And then the
sounds like World Trade Center.
And then a 9/11 that he brought up, that the NORAD, is that what they call it?
Yep, NORAD was down.
Just happened to be down.
There was a drill, a terrorist hijacking simulation drill, like planned for that.
That always
that
happens.
day.
Fighter jets doing practice maneuvers.
Not coincidences.
Exactly. I just felt like I just felt like that this festival too. It's like you're right on the border, and I feel like you're really no, that's another thing too. I have tried to look up as much footage as possible about this, and I'm yet to see anyone actually shot and killed. I know I'm not one to go look at gore, but like I kind of want to see these things myself, so that way I can determine how this actually went down. I'm yet to see it. I saw allegedly this one girl that was at the festival, her tattoos lined up to her supposed body in a truck, but like,
oh my god,
how did she die?
Did all of them allegedly die? At least is that what they're saying?
Blood though.
So we know in history now there's all these crisis actors. So when they start saying, like, for example, that the Palestinians and Hamas are coming over and they're murdering the babies, there was this crisis actor who basically said that she was a Kuwaiti. I believe she was a daughter of an ambassador or something, some government agent, and it was in the late 80s or the early 90s. It said that Iraqi soldiers were coming over and taking babies out of the incubators and stomping them to death on the floor, and turned out to be
admitting
100%.
she lied.
Yes,
she went on like the news and talked about that, how it was so traumatic to her. And I can't remember her name either, but she came out absolutely. She lied.
So that has happened again and again. We have the Gulf of Tonkin where the U.S. put its own destroyer out there and then bombed it and said it was the Viet Cong or whatever, so they could create an enemy. The military-industrial complex is going to do things to make sure that they can extract tax dollars from the people via weapons contracts, they can have power.
God forbid if you have your own warship and then Israel flies by with their fighter jets and starts shooting at it, bombing it.
That was the Liberty, right?
The USS Liberty. Nah, we're not going to do anything about it.
Don't do anything about it. Don't stop them or tell them to cease fire. Yeah, there's a caller who calls in a lot, and I don't remember her name off the top of my head, but she said that her brother died on the USS Liberty.
Wow.
But what Ridley was saying about, like, if there was 60 or 70 people. Now, if that was Pork Fest that happened to, right? These guys in ultralights come in, 3/4 of the people around Pork Fest are carrying, a sidearm. There's always, a handful of people walking around with some kind of rifle slung over their shoulder, at least a couple people. And the thing is I was actually at a festival in Maine the Saturday this happened a couple weeks ago.
Wow.
And when we go to the festival, we went there with our camper. They go to the festival and they're like, we inspect all vehicles for weapons and drugs and stuff. And they see a middle-aged dude with a couple of kids, and they didn't inspect my vehicle at all.
Wow.
But a guy behind me is in a Honda Civic, and there's a couple of young kids, and kids, 20-year-olds, something like that. And they definitely checked their car out, and they were like, oh, you can't have this knife here, and things like
My
that.
God.
But like
Are they like more looking for drugs? Or something?
I don't know. I heard something about they didn't want someone having a knife in there, and then they just held the knife until he left.
They just want to make sure you're vulnerable just in case any ultralights come in.
Well, anyways, I didn't say anything about no arms. But of course I had, stuff with me. If I'm in Maine, Vermont, or Massachusetts, I'm carrying. And there's another reason why it's cost me more to go to. If you want to hire me to go to Massachusetts, I don't like going there anymore because I don't bring anything with me when I go there.
Yeah, I don't even bring my dog with me when I go to Massachusetts because I'm just so afraid of getting, pulled over and then they make some reason for me to go to jail and then my dog's in a pound in Massachusetts.
So when I was at this festival, I was talking to a couple of guys around in one of these vendor tents, and you kind of had a fire going. It was raining. We were talking about what they were telling me what was going on with this thing in Israel with them attacking the music festival with the ultralights, the parachute ultralights, and I was like, I don't like going anywhere without some guns, and everybody in the tent said that they had either a rifle or a shotgun with them, either at that music festival. They're like, hey, it's always in my truck. I live in Maine.
That's one thing I was gonna say. I've only been to Maine for a maybe 3-week period in 2020 in September. And I just got this feeling from all the places that I visited there that it has a very similar culture to New Hampshire. Like, people seem to be okay with things like guns.
All of rural New England has the rural New England culture. And then all the cities everywhere, especially, the more woke they are. And that's a problem. There's a lot of, there's ultra-left liberalism happening. There's wokeism happening in Maine. It's...
And like Portland's bad like that?
Portland's bad. They got a lot of Democrats voting, and a lot of problems.
Sucks because I think that city's so pretty.
A lot of who moves to Maine are Massachusetts parasite class people who work in government. A lot of them retire and they move to Maine because
they ruined Boston, and now they're like, let's go ruin Portsmouth. Make it expensive.
They
too.
basically,
Portland.
Yeah, so they've done their jobs. A lot of career bureaucrats, as soon as they retired, Massachusetts is so expensive because of all the career bureaucrats. They moved to places like upstate New York, where it's dirt cheap. They moved to places like Maine, where it's dirt cheap. The land is cheap, anywhere rural Maine. Taxes are really cheap up there.
Oh, yeah, they give out free land up there.
Almost, yeah. Some places
they do.
Ridley,
well, you're supposed to sign a contract to stop being a potato farmer. So,
Ridley, did you have anything else you wanted to add about gun laws or anything like that?
Well, you ever seen that episode of The Simpsons where the whole world disarms so they get taken over by aliens with slingshots?
No.
So that's Israel, right? Now I admit obviously their military has a lot of weapons, but those are government weapons, right? That doesn't like anything. It's making our point for us.
The government obviously it wasn't interested in shooting down the tiny slow ultralight things.
And and this keeps coming up. It's going to come up, I guess, in Taiwan next, because in Taiwan, compared to Ukraine, it's even worse. They had 7% gun ownership in Ukraine, but in Taiwan, it's 0%, and that's what we're about to go to World War III over, their gun laws.
Well, I hope not.
Well, and here's the thing: like in the past few years, teaching like firearm, usage, etiquette. Even like, I have one of these little plastic shotguns that you put salt in. It's called a bug assault. I don't know if you guys ever use those, but
yeah, I've seen them.
Somebody told me about the pepper ones recently.
You could totally put pepper in this thing, but we just put salt in it. And so my 3-year-old, I cocked a gun for her and she's shooting bugs and, and she's learning that the muzzle only gets pointed down. Or at something you want to destroy, like so we shoot flies, and and I let her know when she has poor muzzle etiquette, and I thought you can't use that thing if you're going to point it at me or your mommy or something, or at your brother. You can't point it at somebody. You can only point it at a bug.
And she's gonna have that so ingrained in her brain that she'll never be accidentally pointing it at people.
When you have people that have never touched a gun before, and a whole society like this sounds like what Taiwan is. How many people in Taiwan have actually ever shot a gun? Have any idea how to use a gun? And you start putting guns in the hands of a bunch of people who culturally haven't had guns in a long time because it's like some kind of emergency. Like if you had an invasion in Taiwan, you would probably have to start arming whoever's willing to, pick up an arm, you're going to have a lot of problems.
Is that all you had for us, Ridley?
That is all. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much for the call, Ridley. I'm going to move on to the next caller because it is an open phones talk show called Free Talk Live, and you can call in at 603-283-6160 with whatever is on your mind. We have Major Payne in Michigan. Major, what's on your mind?
Well, you got some of your numbers wrong on the Maine shooting. I wanted to make a couple comments on Ridley's spew there. Right now, presently, when the war started, only 3% of the Israeli population was armed.
That's pretty low.
Now, what was it? The Yom Kippur War, I think that was in 1969. They had 3 countries come against them, and somehow they came out victorious.
Was that the 6-Day
But
War?
anyway, in 1972, they passed some stupid gun law, and at that time, the gun owner ratio was 17%. Right? So that's tolerable. That's, an armed man in every house almost.
It's better.
But if they what the hell?
Now they have less.
It wouldn't be an armed man in every house because I'm sure, well, I don't know how that really attracted gun ownership, but it's probably that every 10th house, everybody's armed. or every 25 houses, everybody's armed.
According to most of the reports that I've heard that I thought were actually halfway reliable, every house that returned fire to them as they were coming, they pretty much went by it.
Right.
And the reason they attacked all the settlements is because that's where the poor folks are. They can't afford the price of a permit, much less the price of a gun.
It's like bullets shooting out of a house is the new red blood over the doorway.
Well, that comes all the way back from Passover.
Oh, yeah, I mixed that up with Yom Kippur, didn't I?
Yeah, it's a little different.
Yeah, that's not Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur was a war. Not Passover. Passover was a Jewish holiday.
You said that I got some numbers wrong from the Maine thing. Is that did more people die than I had?
Yeah, I've been listening to news clips about this thing all day. There was 18 that were initially killed, and then I just heard a little update from the BBC, and the only thing they say is 18 or more, and there was 13 critically wounded. So 1 or 2 of them may not have made it. I don't know. So it might be up to like 20, but I heard you spitting out like 30 and 50 and whatnot. And the other thing
that was those amount of people were wounded.
Yeah, I heard that 22 had passed and 50 to 60 wounded.
Which is
but that
crazy.
was last night, and they actually, I think, redacted those numbers or something. Or
this
whatever.
was just from
it was 13 wounded, and the guy never signed himself into a nut house either.
Actually,
what happened was he's an Army reservist, and his commanding officers decided he was getting a little loopy. So they called the state police and says, we want you to transport him to the military hospital for a psychiatric evaluation.
When was that?
This was like 6-8 months ago, maybe a year. I don't know.
He was admitted, I believe.
Whether he admitted himself or got admitted, it's
well,
not the
no,
same to me.
every time you go to the hospital, you have to sign in. So that's all they need to twist it right there.
Okay, I don't think it really makes that much of a difference. Like, it doesn't change the conversation.
Yeah,
at
well,
all.
he didn't voluntarily check himself into the nut house. Is what
Well, there's
I'm
also
saying.
such
The
thing
Army
as being
made him go in.
involuntarily committed. You know,
Right.
there's definitely involuntarily being committed and then voluntarily going there.
Like that would.
He wasn't committed. He just went in for a psych evaluation and he passed.
Well,
he
we
didn't
might be
even
talking about
lose it.
something different. I don't have it in front of me anymore.
Yeah, and what that was.
No, we're talking about the main shooting. This guy was.
Right.
Okay, I'm putting you on hold. Jay was saying something.
No. I was the one who stated, so a friend of mine in the, locally here, his father was hunting with, in that area and knows like the family. And they said that he checked himself into a mental health facility this summer for 2 weeks is what was mentioned to me.
Oh, okay.
So and that just comes from, some guy I know who allegedly knows his dad, and it's not any reports, but what he's saying could be very accurate. I don't know.
He also wanted to. He had. I mean, this is what I heard on the news. So he wanted to shoot up a recruitment office, a National Guard recruitment office. And like that was on the FBI's radar for a moment, and that should have been red flags galore.
Yeah.
And he's a firearm instructor.
Well, we know the FBI. When my fear with the FBI, it seems like what they do a lot is they come up with these guys who are twisted, whacked, easy to influence, because they are everywhere. Like I said, the algorithm knows who they are. And they can either just sit back and let it happen, because this is all like for the FBI, all this stuff gives them power, and these guys
can't let opportunity go to waste, right?
So
I think you should be careful though. Anytime you're saying like, "Oh, the FBI could have done something about this," like it's just like asking the FBI to do more. Because
I agree, but these are, as an anarchist, it's hard to say that, right? But I feel like if there's tools and we have, the government says, depend on us. You need us. And then they go ahead and
use other tools.
They mess up and they don't like actually provide a service like a mass shooter going crazy. Like, I think we can blame the FBI and be like, it's your fault. It's partly your fault.
And you look at things where you have actual twisted bad criminals attempting to do stuff, and we have a massive police state. Everything is tracked, traced, monitored, database logged, algorithms looking at stuff. And then you got like the state coming after my wife, for example, over allowing her daughter to safely nap in a car.
And the cops said
during March,
she was completely safe and not in danger the whole time.
Right. But anyways, we got a list of like 14 people putting in all kinds of hours from Child Protective Services, like hundreds of thousands, I don't know, hundreds of man hours. I don't know how many dollars, state employees to like.
I mean, Jane, the ticket lady, she gets $25 an hour, she told me.
And it costs probably $45 an hour, for the taxpayers to pay her $25 an hour with her pension and all her benefits and stuff. Think about that.
Actually, they said that they don't get pensions, but I don't know if I believe them.
I got one more comment on this Maine shooting. Evidently, his brother told him that he had another bar targeted on his list too, but for some reason or another, it was closed that night.
Interesting. Well, thank you for the call.
Well, I think he was just headhunting. He knew where there were sheep. They might all be no carry in the bar.
Yep, we should look into that.
Yeah, there is no carry in a bar in Maine.
Oh yeah,
that is one of the things.
Alcohol.
You can't concealed or open carry, and even if you have a permit in Maine, I believe you can't open carry concealed in a liquor establishment.
One thing I saw, I think it was that Timcast article, which I already X'd off, was that one of the places he shot was a bowling alley. Some of those serve alcohol, so it could very well be a no-gun zone. Well, we're going into the break, but don't go anywhere. There's more Free Talk Live coming up, 603-283-6160. Do you have any opinions on the things we're talking about? Call in and let us know. We have time for you, 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
We have some good news. The indictments against Ross Ulbricht in the District of Maryland were dismissed with prejudice, meaning they can never be refiled. This is especially good because those indictments contain the only charge ever made that Ross engaged in murder for hire. This was a serious allegation that Ross Ulbricht denies. It was never prosecuted or ruled on by a jury, but was trumpeted by the federal government and the media as if it were proven fact. The Maryland court held these indictments for almost 5 years, poisoning Ross's case and leaving him under a cloud of unproven allegations. As explained in Ross's appeal to the Supreme Court, the fact that the judge used these allegations to give Ross a draconian sentence of double life without parole violated his Sixth Amendment right to a jury trial. Judges are required to issue sentences based on convictions decided by a jury, not unproven allegations never even charged at trial. Although this is a positive development, the dropped indictment will not set Ross free. Now, a presidential pardon is Ross's only hope of freedom. Sign the petition at freeross.org. freeross.org.
Eleutheromania, the insatiable desire for freedom. It's the new 3-song heavy metal EP from Captain Kickass. Available now on your favorite music app or get it directly from CaptainKickass.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone. At least 18 people have been killed and another 13 injured in a rampage across parts of the U.S. state of Maine. A manhunt is still underway 24 hours after the incident to find suspect Robert Card, who police describe as a person of interest. Authorities have released pictures of him carrying an assault rifle, entering a restaurant and bowling alley on Wednesday evening. Maine Governor Janet Mills gave an update to reporters.
I'm so deeply saddened, as is every one of the 1.3 million people of this beautiful state. This city did not deserve this terrible assault on its citizens, on its peace of mind, on its sense of security. No city does, no state, no people. No words can truly or fully measure the grief of Maine people today. This is a dark day for Maine. I know it's hard for us to think about healing when our hearts are broken. But I want every person in Maine to know that we will heal together. We are strong, we are resilient, we are a very caring people.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met in Washington on Thursday in a flurry of diplomacy between the two nations. Washington wants China to help make sure the Israel-Gaza conflict doesn't spill over into other countries, and Beijing has expressed a willingness to work together. It's one of the highest level meetings between officials from two of the global powers at a time of conflict between Israel and Hamas. Washington wants to make sure that doesn't escalate. The US and China have been ramping up diplomacy in recent months after years of testy relations. If all goes well, it could lead to a visit from Chinese President Xi Jinping, who may attend the APEC Leader Summit in San Francisco next month, setting up a meeting on the sidelines with Biden. A woman in the United Kingdom has been found guilty of handing over a 3-year-old girl for female genital mutilation while she was on a trip to Kenya. It's the first time anyone in the UK has been convicted for assisting in the illegal procedure. Stuart Smith has more from London.
The procedure involves removing the clitoris of young girls, and it happened to this 3-year-old in 2006. The defendant responsible for bringing the toddler to the Kenyan clinic said she thought it would only involve an injection. Although a British citizen now, the defendant was born in Somalia, where nearly all girls undergo the procedure. The court heard the victim only revealed to anyone that she was a survivor of FGM when she mentioned it to her secondary school English teacher at the age of 16. The procedure is usually carried out with high secrecy, and the prosecutor said she hoped this successful conviction would encourage more victims of genital mutilation to come forward, safe in the knowledge they'd be believed and supported. Research from 2014 suggested over 130,000 women and girls in England and Wales have undergone the procedure. Stuart Smith, London.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking again today at what Israel's plans might be for Gaza. With troops massed along the Israeli border with the territory, there are widely held assumptions that a ground offensive will eventually be launched. But Robert Satloff, the executive director of the influential Washington Institute for Near East Policy, says the Israeli government will be engaged in a major reach if the aim of the military action is the eradication of Hamas.
To get from where we are today to where we would be after that is a big leap. Eradication, decapitation is something that has never occurred in an Arab-Israeli conflict. You have to go back to 1948 before any party even considered this. If indeed Israel achieves in bringing about an end to Hamas rule in Gaza, then all sorts of options are on the table. One can imagine the rehabilitation of the Palestinian Authority, eventually bringing the Palestinian Authority back to Gaza, some interim administration in Gaza. I think right now the Israelis are suggesting what will not happen. For example, no reoccupation of Gaza, no forcible displacement of Gazans. These are the sort of negative things that they are ruling out for the world to hear.
And world leaders continue to urge Israel to give hostage negotiations more time. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again. Suspect at large. US police are still searching for a man behind the mass shooting incident in the state of Maine on Wednesday. The US and China are pushing diplomatic ties as Foreign Minister Wang is in Washington meeting officials, which may include President Biden on Friday. A woman from the UK has been arrested for handing over a 3-year-old girl for female genital mutilation in Kenya. There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story. That's the latest from Feature Story News. Caroline Malone.
It's the Onion Radio News. Teen sex is linked to alcohol and drugs by the Center for Figuring Out Really Obvious Things. This is Doyle Redland reporting. An exhaustive 4-year, $23 million study of substance abuse and sexual habits of more than 2,500 American teens has confirmed that young people between the ages of 13 and 18 who drink and or use drugs are more likely to be sexually active. Dr. Gerald Eckersley is director of the Boston-based organization.
We found that this phenomenon also occurs among adults as well as every population everywhere in the world that has ever existed since the dawn of time.
The center has sent a teleprompter-ready press release of its findings to more than 400 local TV news affiliates across the U.S., along with stock video footage of beer displays and teens smoking and drinking at parties. Doyle Redland for the Onion Radio News, online at theonion.com.
This is the Onion News Network.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. It's talk radio that you control. And the number for you to call in to get in on the conversation with us is 603-283-6160. That's 603-283-6160. And in the studio with you tonight, it's me, Bonnie.
And Joa.
And Jay.
And I'd like to take a second to say this hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash, Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Rising fees have made Bitcoin useless for purchases, but Dash continues to have fees less than 1 cent per transaction, and its features ensure Dash is undefeated as the most useful cryptocurrency in the marketplace. From a technical standpoint, Dash transactions are irreversible and its network is protected from 51% attacks by their Chainlocks technology. There's no need to wait for a confirmation before considering a Dash transaction complete, so it's great for merchants. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at dash.org. And big thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit dash.org to learn more about Dash. Dash.org. And we were talking in the last segment about a whole bunch of different things. I really like doing the show with you too, so.
Oh, thanks, Bonnie. You too.
Yay.
Yeah, you're doing a great job.
Well, thank you. We were talking in the last segment about, well, specifically Dave Ridley brought up gun control in Israel. We're talking about the mass shooting in Maine and also the attack on Israel from allegedly Hamas terrorists out of Gaza. And I actually have this article to get into about...
And they probably were Hamas terrorists, seeing how Hamas is basically like, Mossad sponsored, or came out of some American, Western sponsored,
And in Israel, apparently, I've heard.
Yeah, Mossad is like the Israeli CIA.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, they need a boogeyman. They want a war. But go on.
I just say allegedly because, I didn't even see the video of the little things you guys are calling ultralights. They look like a tricycle or a go-kart with a parachute on it.
I'll show you.
That can be kind of glide up into the air and glide down. But we're going to go to your phone calls and thoughts. We have my dad. His name is Rusty in Alabama. Rusty, what's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing? Thanks for letting me call in. I got a couple things Jay was talking about. I was going to talk about the Second Amendment stuff that's kind of contrary what's going on with Israel compared to our response. One is on the response from Israel, they were heightened into, hey, let's go ahead and bear arms. We should bear arms, and I think that's a good movement, obviously, for Israel. But here in the States, obviously, you're talking about the gun grabbers. Is they're going for that first.
Because of the main
one
shooter?
of the main things of coming out of the Second Amendment you guys were talking about. Also, I'm not sure if you guys caught this, but one of the kibbutzes, there was a 25-year-old. This is reported out of Charlie Kirk that I saw earlier for sure. But it was a 25-year-old woman who saved her kibbutz. It's a Jewish settlement of some of the small settlements that were close to the site where the Hamas came in. So she had weapons, and she was like one of the only kibbutzes or settlements that actually had weapons at all. And with 12 firearms, she was able to save her whole kibbutz. She was able to hand out to other citizens in her small area, and it could have been just by dozens. But they held out for 4 hours.
Do you know how we can look that up? Is there a name associated to this?
It is. It's a Jewish name I do not know off the top of my head, but it's been reported out there. I know I heard it for the first time today on Charlie Kirk show. So it's out there, mainstream.
Yeah.
And that was one of the main reasons why Israel, a big chunk of Israel is like, look, it's night and day. They had guns, they lived. These people didn't have guns, and they did not live.
So is the Israeli government telling their people, no, you're not going to be able to... No, they're starting to get on board because I think the popular swell is so egregious against... right now, they're pretty upset about the government not knowing, how could this happen? That's been talked about, day one. This is inconceivable that some places didn't get help for 6 hours. There was just straight rain of 6 hours of terror. So they're like, they put their trust in the government, and the Israelis were okay to do that. But what happened is, they died. They didn't have a Second Amendment. So it's, obvious lesson from most of us would agree here, obviously, that that would obviously not be the thing to do. But it's getting huge groundswell.
Have you seen any photographs of these kibbutz? What these neighborhoods look like? Do they look like the brand new homeowners associations that are going up all around like Dallas and Denver and Phoenix?
No, from the stuff that I've seen, and I've not seen a picture of that one, so I can't talk for sure about that. It's just they just look like older settlements, look like smaller houses. Just some of the footage that I've seen, but I haven't really dived into too much. I don't want to get on throw all that kind of stuff in my brain, all that extracurricular stuff on there. But at the same time, of the houses that I've seen, they look like modest, but they look older. They did not look newer.
And so they were able to shoot these people that were coming in on these little flying contraptions, or people who
I don't know
got
about
on the
that
ground.
Because, yeah, they would be on the ground where they try to advance further to the kibbutz where the kibbutz were. So they were a little bit like a few miles away. So the exact location, I can't swear on it, but that's being reported widely that, hey, a woman that had 12 weapons dispersed them out to other people, and they saved their kibbutz.
Think about if anyone wants to know what a kibbutz looks like. And imagine just a small little settlement town, sort of isolated from all the other ones, and they're all kind of all tied into each other, like the neighbors and that sort of thing.
Well,
and they're like,
they've been close in location. Yeah,
they're just like these little areas of neighborhoods. Then you have like roads
1,500 square foot
one.
lots with 1,200 square foot houses on them, something like that.
Like 30 acres with a bunch of houses on it.
Okay.
Well, Dada, you said that you had
a lot of them actually.
Something you wanted to say about the Afghanistan poppy fields?
Yeah, I got a first-hand account, pretty much confirming or backing up the same story that Jay had. The poppy fields were definitely protected, and I did not do a tour in Afghanistan. My tours were in Iraq, but in Afghanistan, I know firsthand account, would tell me of a situation that happened where Al-Qaeda individuals that say they were Al-Qaeda were working with special operators because there was communication that spilled over into the 101st. The guy that I know was in the 101st, 1st Brigade, I'm pretty sure. He had all of his radio communications spilled over, obviously a different language, whatever they speak in Afghanistan, and they had Americans jump in on that conversation. Again, this was only 101st was just listening, like, what's going on. They jumped in and said, no, break, stop. And they saw the special operators, but they didn't see the Afghanis, but they were pushed off in the distance. They were going to ambush those guys in the 101st because they got too close to the poppy fields.
Right.
And so there was coordination with at least, I'm sure, our government, but I can't swear on that. All I know is I have firsthand knowledge of what happened.
So you were listening to those radios, you're saying?
Yeah, so they have radio communications for their mission they go on. So they're going out and they're doing their patrols. They'll have a sector, the 101st guys will, or whoever, whoever it was. In this case, it just happened to be 1st Brigade, 101st.
Well, I just want to go back for a second. I can guarantee you that the U.S. military is protecting poppy fields because even a friend of mine in Jay's, should I say his name? Because he talks about it
Silver
publicly.
Dave. He talks about it all the time.
Yeah, he talks about it publicly, and he was literally ordered to defend the poppy fields.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I don't know what unit that guy was in. I just know on this one they happened along it because they were just part of their sector, and they were not ordered. The guys in the 101st were not ordered to guard that, but they found out the captain went back when he has to go to be debriefed on the mission. He was openly yelling and screaming at the battalion commander, which that never happens, and the battalion commander didn't fire him. He just pulled him off somewhere and tried to calm him down and explain him the situation. And that was all right in front of
people,
a sergeant. Yeah, that was in Dugway with us.
Oh, wow.
So it was just, I mean, he told me that, and I was like, wow. And that has to be true because that is other accounts of other things that I've heard. So to me, it backs that up tremendously.
It just, did you have more you wanted to say about the timing with the Maine shooting?
Yeah, I just thought it was really ironic because I don't know if this is conspiratorial or not, but I mean, MK Ultra has been around for a long time.
Yeah, makes sense.
And they get people, and it's not hard to do this, especially if somebody's having mental health issues, somebody who's maybe alone. I mean, even if not, I mean, these guys that are doing this stuff, they can do it to anybody.
They can, mess with people's brains and get them to want to shoot people.
Sound waves. They can do it through sound waves. They don't even need, narcotics or anything. We
were talking, I don't know if Joa was on the show with me this night, but we were talking a few weeks ago about how during Waco they were using literal sound clips of like rabbits dying because apparently they make a crazy noise and just annoying songs that they would play over and over at Waco to try to drive them out and drive them crazy.
How about the fact that social media is so intertwined in our lives, and if this guy was on social media, there's an algorithm can figure out what triggers him,
right.
and this is like the modern day MK Ultra where they could just he's going to go on his Facebook app today. Let's mess with them. And then they just put one thing after another of intense craziness. And the next thing you know, snapped. And now he goes
and
nutty.
If he was already in the military and he could have gone through, MK Ultra type programs where they implanted, code words into his brain where if he hears this specific code word, then he goes and does a mass shooting, and then they
like
just
Monarch,
like the Manchurian candidate.
Yeah, like Monarch. But I'm not familiar with that. I was in the Army for 27 years, and I'm not familiar firsthand, definitely, or secondhand of any of that. But I know that stuff does take place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's whenever the stuff came out about MK Ultra, which they claim it's a program that the military did do, and you can Google it. But they claim that they ended it, but I don't see any reason to believe them that they ended it.
Yeah, that was in the 1960s, yeah.
Right.
So
they started off using military people as the test subjects, and then they started doing like just disadvantaged people, poor people on welfare, stuff like that, kind of like mentally already messed up people.
And that was a while ago,
Some
so
of
you know
these,
they advanced that technology.
Right, and if at the very least they used those experiments and what they learned from it to figure out what they could do on a mass scale, like
Sure.
Joe was saying to people on social media, and Jay was saying the same thing a couple segments ago. Anything else?
If it's an opportunity for a government to gain a military advantage, they're not going to let that go. That doesn't make any sense.
Don't let it go to waste.
If they can do it, they
Yeah.
will do it, and they are.
Well, thank you for the call. I feel like we're all on the same page. Basically, the government will do evil, terrible things to scare the population and get them to give them more control.
Here's the thing about defending your community and your own property. So, like, these guys on these ultralights, if they're flying over one of these cookie cutter homeowner association where every house is just packed in there, like these communities, like I was saying, that they build all around, like Phoenix and
Apartment complexes.
Denver, not so much apartment complexes. Basically, so Joa showed me a photo of a kibbutz, and basically it's surrounded by what looked like alfalfa fields, and in the desert, and it's flat, and there's like no trees there. Probably the trees are trees that they brought in and put in their yards, and these places are usually gated. So like there's a community I went and stayed in last year in Phoenix, right outside of Phoenix, Arizona, where it's all gated. And the houses, have these concrete, walls all between them. You'd have a hard time. You'd have a hard time walking a fat horse between, the house and the wall on either side. You'd no way you're getting like a car or anything in the backyard. You'd have to, if you had a big motorcycle that was all dressed, you'd have a hard time getting in the backyard. And, this is kind of luxury place. But to me, it looked more like an open air prison that could be gated off, that could be sealed off real quick.
Yeah.
And if you're in there, in that area, and a lot of these places, I'm sure these kibbutzes are maybe sort of set up like a 15-minute city. There's probably like stores and, vending maybe that you could do of some sort in there. I don't know what. But like, I know in these communities, like you go like just outside this gated community and there's like a Walmart, whatever, all the, corporate big box
Dollar General
stores, all that crap
they have in Israel, whatever that is.
So
General.
anyways, if you were up on one of these ultralights, you could just literally just buzz around like a bee for hours. You want to put a big fuel tank on these things, you can go for a long time. You said they went 6-7 hours before they were shot out of the sky. These guys, right?
I didn't read that.
They shot out of the sky?
I don't know if they were
eventually?
shot out or if they came down or whatever. But like you could just buzz around up there, and just start taking and just take out whoever you see on the ground if that's how they're doing it. I don't know if they came in and they just landed and they started basically being on foot coming after people. But if you're in one of these ultralights and you're buzzing around and you start seeing shots getting fired at you, you're not landing that thing anywhere near where those shots are getting fired and doing any kind of thing. But here's the other thing. So this woman had 12 guns. And you might think 12 guns is a lot for one, man or woman to have. That's not nearly enough. Because basically in a situation like that, you need a gun for like all your friends, your neighbors, especially if you're the only one that's armed. So the way you're really going to protect your community is if your neighbors all know how to shoot your guns. Now, who are you going to let know about what you have for guns, know where your guns are, know where your ammo is, how to shoot your guns? People you trust. Well, one thing that we're really lacking, especially in urban America and hopefully not so much rural America. I know all my neighbors, and pretty much even the one I don't get along with, I definitely trust him with my gun if if there was an invasion, because he's like for example, but like so when you like train and even people you hang out with, like if you carry. I like the idea of like the people I'm around and the people I hang out with know how to use my gun. I want, and I'll often be like, hey, you should shoot my gun if you know how to, if you're hanging around with me, just in case.
Invites me to go learn how to shoot guns at his house all the time.
So anyways, I want my friends, I want my family, my peers, the people who are around me to like have an idea of how to use my guns. And I think that's very important because you need to be able to you might need to be able to hand your neighbor your AR-15 or your AK-47 or your, bolt action, hunting rifle or whatever, or your pistol. And, all these guns sort of have little different features to them. And there are people who can shoot one kind of gun and you hand them another gun if they're blindfolded and they wouldn't be able to shoot it, for example. So it's important that who you hang around with knows how to use your gun. And if you're hanging around with the kind of people that you wouldn't give your gun to, you shouldn't be hanging around with those kind of people.
Oh, for real.
You know?
Yeah. That's a great point about who you should hang out with.
Yeah.
Can I hand my gun to this person?
Right.
No. Okay, I probably shouldn't hang out with them.
Yeah, the company you keep. Well, we do have a story from the Foundation for Economic Education, FEE.org, about gun and gun control. I thought it seemed pretty interesting. It says, gun control advocates ignore what the Founding Fathers really taught. And it says, we don't have to guess.
Is that thought or taught?
Oh, wait, thought. Yeah, sorry. My bad. We don't have to guess
Not
what
T-H-O-T, by the way, everyone.
Yeah.
It's T-H-O-U-G-H-T.
What they really thought when they were writing, I guess. We don't have to guess what the Founding Fathers thought about gun rights. We can read what they wrote, is the subtitle there. He says, in all my years of existence, the Second Amendment of our Constitution has always been considered controversial. Opponents claim it is the cause of gun violence. Proponents assert that it helps guarantee freedom and safety. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. These 27 words have been the subject of much debate during the 20th and 21st centuries. Does it mean that citizens only have a right to own guns if the state has a well-regulated militia in place that they are a part of?
No, because it says shall. Okay, go ahead.
I don't think it does. Or does it mean absolutely that the right to bear arms should not be infringed, which is what it literally says? Perhaps it means that you can only use guns for hunting purposes, or you're not allowed to have anything more complicated than an 18th century musket because that's what the founders had when they wrote this.
Yeah, but did they say just hunting animals?
Nope.
Okay, good point.
The last two questions don't seem to make sense when you look at the wording of the Second Amendment, but somehow opponents have made this a pillar of their arguments because they keep repeating and insisting on it on the grounds that, well, we don't know what the Founding Fathers really intended when they wrote this.
Well, they intended that the people be so well armed and more powerful than the government and more powerful than anyone else because purposes, you're not going to be getting invaded. You're not going to be getting invaded by Indians. You're not going to be getting invaded by foreigners. You know, the reason the Prime Minister of Japan said they didn't want to do a ground invasion on the United States because there'd be a sniper behind every blade of grass. I can't remember how many 100 million hunting permits. There's like something like 100 and maybe more like 75% of the population has like a hunting permit or something in the United States. That's surprising. Or maybe half.
Or it's at least a safety course or something like that.
It was the actual permit for hunting, I believe.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember the number. But anyways, here's the thing about a hunter. Every hunter's a sniper.
Right.
Every one of them. And so this is where 75 years ago, almost, way more people hunted, than today. But I believe the number's 100 million hunting permits as of 2019, in 2019, essentially.
Is it a thing, like, to go to, say, China to go hunting?
Not that I know of.
I never hear about other countries and hunting really at all. But
maybe like Africa's safari, because
but
it's like exotic and it's like
people
illegal.
from other countries going there to hunt, right?
Right.
Well, I'm gonna go to the phones. Anonymous caller, or at least unscreened caller, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
I'm in San Francisco. Long time libertarian activist out here.
Star Child. Is that what you said?
Yeah, Star Child.
Oh, what's on your mind tonight?
Well, I just happened to tune in. First of all, I want to say how sad I was to see Ian going to jail, and Arya, of course, still being in jail. It's just such a travesty of justice. It really
is.
They're keeping their spirits up.
Are you able to hang on till the end of this break? It's going to be about 4 minutes.
Sure.
All right, I'm going to put you on hold. 603-283-6160 is the phone number to call in with whatever's on your mind. More coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
First things first, you should offer, not ask, to renegotiate.
I'm Holland Cook with Inflation Hacks. For instant savings, make a list. Video and music streaming services, insurance premiums, your cable bill, your cell phone plan, that gym membership you stopped using by February, all those recurring costs that hit your credit card like clockwork every month. And about that card, tell them you want a lower rate. Many who do get one. And if you don't, because credit cards are stealing each other's customers, sign up for a new one with an introductory 0% balance transfer offer so you at least stop the clock on what you already owe. How are you coping? Post your inflation hacks at andyoucanquoteme.com.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone. At least 18 people have been killed and another 13 injured in a rampage across parts of the U.S. state of Maine. A manhunt is still underway 24 hours after the incident to find suspect Robert Card, who police describe as a person of interest. Authorities have released pictures of him carrying an assault rifle, entering a restaurant and bowling alley on Wednesday evening. Maine Governor Janet Mills gave an update to reporters.
I'm so deeply saddened, as is every one of the 1.3 million people of this beautiful state. This city did not deserve this terrible assault on its citizens, on its peace of mind, on its sense of security. No city does, no state, no people. No words can truly or fully measure the grief of Maine people today. This is a dark day for Maine. I know it's hard for us to think about healing when our hearts are broken. But I want every person in Maine to know that we will heal together. We are strong, we are resilient, we are a very caring people.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met in Washington on Thursday in a flurry of diplomacy between the two nations. Washington wants China to help make sure the Israel-Gaza conflict doesn't spill over into other countries, and Beijing has expressed a willingness to work together. It's one of the highest-level meetings between officials from two of the global powers at a time of conflict between Israel and Hamas. Washington wants to make sure that doesn't escalate. The US and China have been ramping up diplomacy in recent months after years of testy relations. If all goes well, it could lead to a visit from Chinese President Xi Jinping, who may attend the APEC Leader Summit in San Francisco next month, setting up a meeting on the sidelines with Biden. A woman in the United Kingdom has been found guilty of handing over a 3-year-old girl for female genital mutilation while she was on a trip to Kenya. It's the first time anyone in the UK has been convicted for assisting in the illegal procedure. Stuart Smith has more from London.
The procedure involves removing the clitoris of young girls, and it happened to this 3-year-old in 2006. The defendant responsible for bringing the toddler to the Kenyan clinic said she thought it would only involve an injection. Although a British citizen now, the defendant was born in Somalia, where nearly all girls undergo the procedure. The court heard the victim only revealed to anyone that she was a survivor of FGM when she mentioned it to her secondary school English teacher at the age of 16. The procedure is usually carried out with high secrecy, and the prosecutor said she hoped this successful conviction would encourage more victims of genital mutilation to come forward, safe in the knowledge they'd be believed and supported. Research from 2014 suggested over 130,000 women and girls in England and Wales have undergone the procedure. Stuart Smith, London.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
Talk Live. 603-283-6160 is the number for you to call to get in on the conversation with us. That's 603-283-6160. And in the studio with you tonight on Free Talk Live, it's me, Bonnie,
Joa,
and Jay.
And I would like to take a second to thank Glenn Nielsen. He's a gold level amplifier with Free Talk Live, and an amplifier is someone who helps amplify, market, promote, and support Free Talk Live. And if you'd like to learn more about that, you can go to AMPS, AMPS. That's amps.freetalklive.com to learn more. And thank you again to Glenn Nielsen for contributing in that way. And if anybody is interested in joining, you can go to amps.freetalklive.com. So thank you.
So one of our listeners, Rob, has sent me a message saying, and he sent me a link to a little video. I guess right now the police have surrounded a main shooter suspect home, according to ABC News.
Wow.
Wasn't sure if he got found yet. I'm going to go straight back to the phones.
That's what they said.
Interesting.
I'm going to go back to the phones. We have Starchild from California. Starchild, what's on your mind?
Yeah, hey, Bonnie, Joe, Joe. I wanted to talk a little bit about what I see as the growing importance of the international aspect for the liberty movement, including for the Free State Project in New Hampshire, which I definitely support and I think is a great thing, and encourage everyone to move there if you can, or support from afar. But I think that the world is increasingly interconnected, and there's a lot of exciting things happening in other countries as well. I know people have been following. We've been talking about what's going on in Argentina with Javier Milei, who just secured place in the presidential runoff and got the support of the second runner-up. He didn't get the most votes. He did it in the primary back in August. The primary election, he came out as the number one candidate for the Argentine presidency.
We've talked about him a few times on the show. He's basically like Argentina's Ron Paul right now. And I have an article just about exactly what you're bringing up. The third runner-up has extended her support to him. So it's looking pretty good for him on this runoff.
Is the results out yet?
Yeah, he didn't win, but there's a runoff.
Right. On October, what was it, just a couple days ago, 24th? No, anyway, whatever the date was.
It was Sunday, the Sunday that just passed.
Sunday, right. He came in second, which was a little bit disappointing because they'd been expecting to come in first, as he had in the primary. But basically, the left-leaning statist Peronist government, which is basically the folks who've been running Argentina for the past half century or so, since Juan and Eva Perón famously. Basically, they pulled out all the stops in terms of both fear mongering, saying, "Oh, your pension's going to be destroyed if this radical, libertarian gets in," this kind of thing, and also they put through a bunch of tax cuts and other freebies at the last minute to buy votes. Essentially, I think the government clearly has no money to do. I mean, they have rampant hyperinflation there, and cannot afford new spending, but buying votes is a tried and true strategy, and apparently it worked to some extent. But fortunately, the La Libertad Avanza party, the Libertarian Party that Javier Milei heads, did pick up a good number of seats in the Argentine legislature, and going forward for the runoff election on November 19th, he's now got the support of the candidate came in third behind himself and
the first two places, Milei and that guy who won first, they were close enough that it made it to where they're going to have this runoff. So considering that, and then the third place person who got like 20% or 26% backing him, it looks pretty good for Milei. I'm really interested to see if he's going to win. But going back to your main idea. Basically, you said you find it important for libertarians to pay attention to what's going on in the whole world. Why is that?
Well, not just pay attention. What I want to specifically talk about actually is there's an organization that I think is worth joining and supporting and trying to get membership. In fact, from New Hampshire, I just went to their website and they have opened new membership applications. It says for 2023-2024. The group is called UNPO, the Unrepresented Nations and Peoples Organizations, and they're at unpo.org. What is basically kind of an alternative United Nations. and they've got dozens of member countries and some former member countries that were eventually evicted into the UN or dropped out for other reasons. But basically, there's a huge number of areas around the world, occupied nations, one might call them, or startup countries. And I would put New Hampshire in this category potentially, as well as some other places in the United States, like the Lakota Nation or Hawaii, other areas that are seeking independence. And I think it really behooves all these areas to work together and libertarians to promote secession, decentralization on the philosophy that everyone everywhere deserves political self-representation. If you have a majority of people in a particular piece of land who want to secede and become independent, that should always be allowed. It's a fundamental civil right. And I think people like yourselves, myself, I consider myself a political dissident. I consider you guys political dissidents. And I think, things like the whole travesty of what happened with the Crypto 6, we should be reaching out to connect with the people who support democracy and freedom in other countries, including mainstream organizations, like Human Rights Watch and such, to put pressure on governments when they go after dissidents like this, because it clearly was a planned operation, with this FBI agent and everything. Phil Christiani, I believe his name was.
Phil Christiani, yeah.
Christiani, who, clearly had a targeted Free Talk Live and Ian and people over the years, tried to get Rich Paul to wear the wiretap and everything to spy on you guys. And,
tried to get Dave Ridley to talk with him. Wouldn't agree once Ridley said, "Okay, I'll do it, but I want to film the entire thing."
Yeah, the international pressure angle, I think, is very important. It highlights the U.S. government's hypocrisy. They don't want that kind of exposure and embarrassment. No government does, and to the extent that international pressure can be brought to bear, I mean, we should say, we want international election observers in this country.
You're talking about embarrassing government officials. Oh, gosh darn, did I embarrass that prosecutor today in court?
We do need to get into that.
Yeah, we need to get into that.
Can you remind me, or just restate it, Starchild? I didn't quite get the name of the organization you were talking about.
Yeah, it's called the Unrepresented Nations and Peoples Organization, UNPO.org. Again, it's kind of like an alternative United Nations for countries, groups that want to become countries who are not allowed into the United Nations, including some big ones like Taiwan is probably the leading example. It's a de facto independent country. And
that's a good thing, not being in the UN.
Well, it is and it isn't. I mean, it gives a certain degree of protection, against the predations of other governments. I mean, sadly, the U.S. government basically sold out Taiwan back in the 70s under Richard Nixon, although it wasn't democratic at the time, but at least it wasn't perpetrating the horrific human rights abuses that the communist regime was in China. And now Taiwan is fully democratic, and they're trying to stay free and independent. And Xi Jinping and the dictatorship of the CCP in mainland China is trying to, take over, and has been threatening military action and everything. And obviously, we don't want the United States government involved in a war there, or more government-to-government aid. But we need, I think, the libertarian movement, the freedom movement worldwide, needs more things like, there's another great group called Sons of Liberty International, founded by Matthew Van Dyke, who's a former journalist, an American journalist who went and covered the conflict in Libya and then in Syria. And he, made friends there, and he actually got into the fighting and was a prisoner of war briefly in Libya, and then he went and fought against the Assad regime in Syria. Now he's founded this organization, which is basically a non-state, alternative that's providing military training and support to people trying to overthrow regimes in other places. Because I think just like we don't say as libertarians, now, oh, it's enough to just say get rid of all the welfare state, because our enemies already say, oh, you libertarians just want grandma to starve in the street. You're just a bunch of heartless capitalists. So it's not enough to say, like, well, we need U.S. government support for these things to end. We need to have alternatives in place. Domestically, I think we've been pretty good about that. But internationally, libertarians in this country will still say, like, oh, well, the U.S. shouldn't be involved in Ukraine. The U.S. government shouldn't be involved in defending Taiwan or South Korea or whatever. And that's not enough. We need to provide alternative means in the voluntary sector.
It's all about really education.
People fighting for freedom.
I tend to agree. It's like if people are educated to be able to do certain things, and thank you so much for the call tonight, Star Child, but I just think that I enjoy the fact that people can call into the show and bring up organizations they think are doing a great job, and other people can hear it and join if they're interested. But personally, I think that the best thing you can do is give people the ability to help themselves. And it's like, I am so incredibly busy just running like my regular life. Like, I don't have the ability and yeah, it's not like he's just asking me to do something for another country all myself. But it's just that if it's not something that I'm really called to do, I don't have time for it. And I do lots of activism here, and I think a lot of people might see it that way. And the thing is, like, if you're making your goal to teach as many people as possible, don't hurt people and don't take their stuff, I think that can do a lot.
Yeah, I was going to say that the news is just giving everyone blips of information, and people are really just not looking into it and really absorbing a larger picture of like libertarianism. They always just want to go, oh yeah, like you were saying, the grandmother's starving in the streets. Well, you know how long that grandmother would starve in the streets if we had a libertarian society? Not very long. She'd be fed voluntarily, and
that grandma. You know what I thought about? Well, if your grandma is an a-hole, right, and or somebody's just been nasty and mean, you're probably not interested. I know people that got like a mom or a parent that they're like, I'm not interested in doing anything for them. They were horrible to me.
But then there's going to be people out there who are like, I am just such a good person that even if this old lady's a a-hole, I want to put my time in and feed her. And the thing is, right now, people are being held back from being able to do that want to do things like that because, well, first of all, they feel like, oh, well, the government's already taking care of that. And second of all, if you want to go out and just start feeding homeless people, you could get arrested.
Well, you were saying like a nasty grandmother, and like she's just mean, and who's going to feed her? Well, guess what? She's going to probably end up becoming nice.
Well, and that's it. So if the government's not going to take care of you, and you have to rely on young people to take care of you, essentially when you get old, because we're all going to get to a point someday where we can't take care of ourselves. And so we have a huge percentage of the population. There is more women over 35 years old without children in America right now than there has ever been. And so we have this epidemic of people who don't have children, there's nobody to take care of them. And then you have a lot of kids that there's a lot of 40-year-olds, people my age, that can't take care of themselves. Never mind take care of a family member or an aging parent or whatever. But just like you guys were talking about education and like and creating this libertarian society. One of the things that I've been saying for a long time we need to have is we need to start building confidence in Generation Next right now. And because people who have confidence don't ask government for help, they don't ask government permission, they don't beg government. It is the people who lack confidence that are the ones that are demanding the welfare, demanding the government jobs, working in government, for example. And you'll notice that a lot of libertarians are usually pretty darn confident. And, competence, people who
they're confident in the principles, right? They're not so much confident in others. But
I would say generally overall, they're kind of confident people because in order to have a libertarian philosophy, you got to be confident in others.
Got to believe in self-responsibility, and it's kind of hard to want self-responsibility and not be competent and able to do things yourself.
I believe that most people want to be good, right? It's just biggest majority in the world that people want to be good, and we all get along, right? Then you got like these very small percentage psychos, convincing other people to be psychos like them, but take
Right.
the action. Like,
Exactly.
yeah,
That's exactly
do the
how it is.
horrible things like shooting up a place in Maine, or robbing stores because you can. Like
Or
these
trafficking
are
children.
Yeah, like
as a government agent.
we go on and on. Actually, be a cop.
Yeah.
These are psychotic methods, guys.
And you don't have to be a psychopath, like Joe was saying. The reason I was like, yes, that's how it is. I'm always trying to convince people, and I think that Mark Passio, he explains this better than anyone else. If you want to listen to his podcast, whatonearthishappening.com, and then you go to the podcast section and start at podcast 1, you'll learn all about this. Like Joe said, there's a very, very small percentage of the human race that are actually psychopaths, but being psychopaths, they learn very quickly they got to act normal, and they can't just act on all their impulses, but they need a larger percent of people to act the way that they want to act. They make them into something called secondary psychopaths by training
Right.
them, and then they make them do the dirty work for them.
It's like the military.
Right.
It's like the officer tells one of his
Underlings.
privates, go shoot that guy over there, and damn, they do it.
Order takers, order followers.
Hierarchies. Hierarchies is the biggest thing. There's someone below you and there's someone above you. I take orders and I give orders to the ones under me. It's just...
How patriotic is he, huh?
Well, Joe, I did really want to get into your trial today because we have only in one more hour plus the last few minutes of this segment. So what do you have to tell us about what went on today? So this has been going on for over a year. I've been really excited and I freaking slept in.
First off, if you're a witness, please turn off the show. But if you're not a witness, you can listen. There's only like 3 of you out there. But the prosecution, what a tool. What a D-bag he was.
Is he a soy boy?
A
just got one?
wife beater.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How do you know?
Well, I'm just repeating.
That's just the vibe?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Well, he physically at the end of we get to the end here and not just talk about the trial, but he tried walking through me. He purposely bumped his laptop into my my friend that he was assisting with counsel.
Yeah.
Purposely did that at the end. He knew that only the bailiff was in there and that bailiff had had his back turned, so he was doing all this crap. He even he even threatened to dox me. He even threatened to dox me in the court.
Wow.
This is absurd behavior. But anyways, if you want to get to the trial, do you have any questions about
It's
it?
just normal for a psychopath, what you're telling me.
So
yeah.
why are you on trial?
I am on trial because I swung at Don Bolduc. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh my god.
I'm just kidding.
They're
I'm
gonna
just
cut
kidding.
that.
I'm just kidding. I never did that actually. But no, I was trespassed from St. Anselm College. This was during a debate that WMUR was hosting, or they're the ones hosting the debate.
They're putting it on, yeah.
And putting it on, and St. Anselm was the host, right? And they didn't let my friend Jeremy Kaufman in. And so I had
And he was running for the same position, but he was a
Correct.
libertarian.
And
so.
WMUR changed the qualifier rules for the debates so that way you couldn't have him in, even though he was
let's understand,
a viable candidate.
WMUR is just one of these garbage puppet media, regurgitators of,
Spinsters.
Operation Paperclip, whatever, stuff.
They
absolutely.
They're so bad. They interviewed me right after Ian's thing. They just clipped one part that made it sound like I was saying something kind of silly, and they introduced me as Ian's new wife. He's never had a wife before. They're just trying to make me look like young.
They're a garbage media outlet that's government sponsored. So
they reported on a few days, like a day after I went to go file charges against Don Bolduc for assault, throwing an elbow in my chest. And the UR, they were there, and they promised me while I was being interviewed, when the camera's off, they promised me that they were going to show the clip of Don Bolduc throwing an elbow in my chest. Well, you know what they did? They played the clip up to the point where the elbow goes into my chest.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so they lied to me.
So you're not going to be able to have
Did you
it?
subpoena that video?
Well, no, look, WMUR wasn't recording. Actually, the video that recorded was our friend Penguin.
Okay.
And he was also there in court today. But I am going to be showing that footage if necessary. Actually, it seems, I'll tell you, the trial is looking pretty good. I don't want to put too much confidence out there because I really feel like the judge is getting a little frustrated with me a little bit.
No, they wouldn't do that.
But she's only frustrated because I don't understand the full process, right? I'm pro se. I'm not a lawyer. And it's
That's
like...
annoying.
Yeah,
Get
and it's
frustrated
like
with you for that.
the prosecutor probably objected like I don't know a dozen times, and like
I think
I won most of them. But
we should take a break because I have somebody here, unscreened caller. What's on your mind?
Well, I was just thinking, when somebody tells the audience that their opponent doesn't know what they're talking about, the cop has a right to frisk you for weapons, for example, when they have to conduct a investigatory stop. Like, let's say you're breaking into a parked car.
Call it Terry frisk.
Yeah, you're breaking into a parked car, but you have every right to break into your own parked car. So the cop is simply checking out, is that your car that you're breaking into, that they supposedly have a right to frisk you for weapons. And they have this thing called Terry versus Ohio.
The worst thing ever that cops use.
But then you simply say, well, opponent, please explain why you agree with that ruling. And they're stunned. They'll be stunned at the very idea that they have a choice about whether to agree with something that is vomited forth by the United States Supreme Court. Of course, the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms is there so that people can resist the coercive acts of government and fight back when necessary. So the idea that the cop supposedly has a right to disarm you, well, then what do you do if the cop tries to arrest you pursuant to an unjust law?
Can you explain, one of you guys explain what the Terry rule is? I wondered that not too long ago. It was being talked about on the air. And
Well, the Terry versus Ohio law comes from supposedly, like they were saying that these guys were casing a joint, and I think it was back in the 60s. They were casing a joint, and the cop used an excuse that, all right, this guy's just standing here for no reason. I want to at least pat him down, make sure he doesn't have any weapons. And the guy that he ended up patting down, a black gentleman, basically lost in court, and they were able to use the ruling that yes, cops are allowed to pat you down for weapons because officer safety, and they don't even have to have a reason. No
at
suspicion.
all time, anytime, or just like on the road.
A lot of times you hear about jump out boys in cities, and they're actually, the jump out boys are just undercover vehicles that roll around, and then all of a sudden they stop and they jump out and they like, we're patting you down, we're checking you, you know.
Oh my God.
Stop and frisk,
yeah.
Ew.
And that comes from the Terry versus Ohio, Terry frisk.
Sexual assaulters.
But what's really bad about
Thank you for the call, by the way, Tom.
Terry versus Ohio is that it bridges all these other laws for suspicious activity to we get to search your vehicle. This all stems from Terry versus Ohio, the worst thing. And actually, I'm glad you brought this up. I'm sorry, Tom, we let you go so early. But no offense, Bonnie, but I think the reason why he was mentioning this because he might be a Delete Laws subscriber. And if you really want to know a lot about Terry versus Ohio, get over to Delete Laws on YouTube.
More coming up, and more about Joa's trial that we want to get into. 603-283-6160. Bring up whatever's on your mind. Ask any questions. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Some of you have wanted to support Free Talk Live's mission on a monthly basis, but don't want to support Patreon. Now we have an alternative that also helps our premier streaming platform, Odyssey. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click Join at the top of the channel. You can subscribe for $5 per month, and unlike other subscription services, Odyssey adds their processing fee on top, so it'll cost a little over $5 per month, but Free Talk Live will receive the entire amount you pledged. Higher donation tiers are available if you're feeling so inspired. You'll get a special membership badge that's visible in the Odyssey chat room, and if we get enough supporters, we may enable members-only chat. This new subscription method is a great way to decentralize our direct listener support away from just Patreon and also support a libertarian-run business, Odyssey. Please visit video.freetalklive.com and click join to subscribe to our Odyssey channel and help support spreading our message around the planet. Visit video.freetalklive.com and click join today.
My name is Jacob Hornberger. I'm president of the Future of Freedom Foundation, which Congressman Ron Paul awarded for having an outstanding freedom website. Write us at fff@fff.org, and we'll send you a free 3-month subscription to our monthly journal of libertarian essays and our booklet, Economic Liberty in the Constitution, which George Mason University economics professor Walter Williams praised in a recent column. That's fff@fff.org.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone. At least 18 people have been killed and another 13 injured in a rampage across parts of the US state of Maine. A manhunt is still underway 24 hours after the incident to find suspect Robert Card, who police describe as a person of interest. Authorities have released pictures of him carrying an assault rifle, entering a restaurant and bowling alley on Wednesday evening. Maine Governor Janet Mills gave an update to reporters.
I'm so deeply saddened, as is every one of the 1.3 million people of this beautiful state. This city did not deserve this terrible assault on its citizens, on its peace of mind, on its sense of security. No city does, no state, no people. No words can truly or fully measure the grief of Maine people today. This is a dark day for Maine. I know it's hard for us to think about healing when our hearts are broken. But I want every person in Maine to know that we will heal together. We are strong, we are resilient, we are a very caring people.
US Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met in Washington on Thursday in a flurry of diplomacy between the two nations. Washington wants China to help make sure the Israel-Gaza conflict doesn't spill over into other countries, and Beijing has expressed a willingness to work together. It's one of the highest level meetings between officials from two of the global powers at a time of conflict between Israel and Hamas. Washington wants to make sure that doesn't escalate. The US and China have been ramping up diplomacy in recent months after years of testy relations. If all goes well, it could lead to a visit from Chinese President Xi Jinping, who may attend the APEC Leader Summit in San Francisco next month, setting up a meeting on the sidelines with Biden. A woman in the United Kingdom has been found guilty of handing over a 3-year-old girl for female genital mutilation while she was on a trip to Kenya. It's the first time anyone in the UK has been convicted for assisting in the illegal procedure. Stuart Smith has more from London.
The procedure involves removing the clitoris of young girls, and it happened to this 3-year-old in 2006. The defendant responsible for bringing the toddler to the Kenyan clinic said she thought it would only involve an injection. Although a British citizen now, the defendant was born in Somalia, where nearly all girls undergo the procedure. The court heard the victim only revealed to anyone that she was a survivor of FGM when she mentioned it to her secondary school English teacher at the age of 16. The procedure is usually carried out with high secrecy, and the prosecutor said she hoped this successful conviction would encourage more victims of genital mutilation to come forward, safe in the knowledge they'd be believed and supported. Research from 2014 suggested over 130,000 women and girls in England and Wales have undergone the procedure. Stuart Smith, London.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks, looking again today at what Israel's plans might be for Gaza. With troops massed along the Israeli border with the territory, there are widely held assumptions that a ground offensive will eventually be launched. But Robert Satloff, the executive director of the influential Washington Institute for Near East Policy, says the Israeli government will be engaged in a major reach if the aim of the military action is the eradication of Hamas.
To get from where we are today to where we would be after that is a big leap. Eradication, decapitation, is something that has never occurred in an Arab-Israeli conflict. You have to go back to 1948 before any party even considered this. If indeed Israel achieves in bringing about an end to Hamas rule in Gaza, then all sorts of options are on the table. One can imagine the rehabilitation of the Palestinian Authority, eventually bringing the Palestinian Authority back to Gaza, some interim administration in Gaza. I think right now the Israelis are suggesting what will not happen. For example, no reoccupation of Gaza, no forcible displacement of Gazans. These are the sort of negative things that they are ruling out for the world to hear.
And world leaders continue to urge Israel to give hostage negotiations more time. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks.
And the main news again. Suspect at large. US police are still searching for a man behind the mass shooting incident in the state of Maine on Wednesday. The US and China are pushing diplomatic ties as Foreign Minister Wang is in Washington meeting officials, which may include President Biden on Friday. A woman from the UK has been arrested for handing over a 3-year-old girl for female genital mutilation in Kenya. There's more from us on Twitter at Feature Story. That's the latest from Feature Story News. Caroline Malone.
In a deal policymakers have hailed as a decisive step towards combating the rapidly escalating national debt, the United States settled 0.02 millionth of a percent of its debt to China this week with a single autographed photograph of John Hamm. The sale of the glossy signed headshot of the acclaimed actor, which China reportedly accepted for a financial easement of approximately $150 out of America's estimated $1.3 trillion in obligations, concludes a 6-month negotiation between the two parties.
The decision was obviously not an easy one, but without question, this was the right choice for our nation's future.
And in this week's science news, a distant planet is terrified that it might be able to someday support human life. In other news, a live cow is lowered onto the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives. The majority of an office's supplies are used to apply for different jobs, and a lapsed cult member only attends sanctum on major bloodletting holidays.
This is the Onion News Network.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live, which is talk radio you control. 603-283-6160 is the number for you to call. 603-283-6160. To get in on the conversation with us, bring up whatever's on your mind. It doesn't matter because it's Free Talk Live. And with you in the studio tonight, it's me, Bonnie.
Joa. And Jay.
And before we get into more of Joa's trial that he's recapping for us, Jay, you had an announcement you wanted to make?
So, yes, I am going to be presenting this year at Anarchapulco X, the 10th anniversary of Anarchapulco.
Cool.
Anarchapulco is a freedom festival in conference, actually, in Acapulco, Mexico. And there's going to be, all kinds of people there talking about all kinds of freedom stuff, anarchist stuff. It's an incredible adventure where you'll literally rub elbows with your personal heroes. Just take a look at the speakers lineup, the 2024 Anarchapulco X Reborn. Freedom is Rising will be held at the beautiful and ever-expanding Jardín Secreto over the last few years. So check out anarchapulco.com for what's going on there. And if you go to anarchapulco.com/tickets and use coupon code J, you'll get a 10% discount. And it's going to be a good time. They have a good lineup there. Check it out. And also, Acapulco got hammered by a hurricane.
Category 5.
Bad, yeah.
Yeah, and there's like a media blackout on it, or the media just rather talk about Israel and Maine.
Pretty much, I would say so. That's probably why we haven't.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
So there's $dollarvigilante.tv, which is like Jeff Berwick's channel. He just put a thing out there, talking all about this. And there is there's bad stuff's happening there at the moment. The website is Hurricane OtisRecovery.com, and that's from essentially Jeff Berwick. If you guys want to, help out with they're taking donations or to help people in Acapulco, but hopefully they'll have everything straightened out in February. What's it? February 8th through 18th or so? No, February 10th through 18th, I believe, is when the Acapulco is. But I hope to see you there.
Well, before we get back into Joa's trial, I actually so it's anarchapulco.com/tickets, and for a 10% coupon code, use code J.
JAY, yes.
But before we get back into Joa's trial, I wanted to go to the phones. We have an unscreened caller. What's on your mind, caller? What's your name?
Hey, I was driving in New Hampshire Sunday about 3 a.m., and a state trooper followed me for about 10 miles, tailgating me right behind me. And I want to know, can I FOIA for the name of the officer, any radio calls he made? I ended up not getting pulled over, but if there's a state trooper that has it out for me, I want to know about it. You know what I mean?
I can explain that to you. So the FOIA here is called a right to know request, which is RSA 91A. Mm-hmm. Now, I like better quoting the actual Constitution of New Hampshire for these requests, not their statute, which is basically if you read the New Hampshire Bill of Rights, it talks about open government and transparent government. I forget what clause it is.
I think it's 8, right?
So what you would do is if you have a date and time and a road that you were on and a direction you were traveling, I would include that in with the right to know request, and I would send it to whatever barracks there is, and I would do it certified mail, or I would do it, in hand.
Well, you mentioned the things that can identify who's following them, but you need to ask specifically something to the effect of, I'd like to know all the plates that he ran, or something like that.
Call logs.
Yeah, call logs, communications, text messages, and calls to dispatch. Those are the things you request. But
and also if you can even if you really want to narrow it down, whatever plate number was on the car, be like, hey, did you run this plate? You could do that also. Now, just curious, what state plate was on the car?
New Hampshire.
New Hampshire. Okay, so a lot of people.
I think maybe he wanted to read all my bumper stickers.
Oh, that's nice. Maybe he's getting smarter.
That can sort of make you a lightning rod, for these guys' attention. But people who run Montana plates often get followed. Yep. I hear this all the time, and then the cops usually turn around or they pull off somewhere. But it's been said, Grafton police and actually Meredith police. I don't know. So the Meredith police said that they don't like giving tickets to people with Montana plates because they always have to go to court. And then another friend of mine, he was in Grafton, and a cop told him the same thing, that if I write a ticket to someone with a Montana plate, I know I'm going to court.
I feel so safe driving in my Montana plate cars with all my Free Talk Live, Cop Block, Peace bumper stickers, porcupines. I've never been pulled over in New Hampshire. And I don't even really get followed by cops. I think that they don't want to deal with me because of that.
I would say so. They see a porcupine sticker on your car in New Hampshire, they're less likely to pull you over.
They just know it won't be an easy, quick stop.
Because they know it's going to be challenged, at least on the scene or in court later on.
Unless it's a cop who has a hard-on for it, which, you're going to come across those once in a while. Yeah. But usually they get straightened out pretty quick.
So that's why he was following me for so long.
Right,
he was trying to, he was like, he really wanted to pull me over, but he was like, no.
I'm waiting for him to give me a real good reason.
Does that kind of answer your... Oh, go ahead.
Yes. Yeah, I wrote all that down. I really appreciate it. I've got another question. Do you mind going through the basics of, the common sense stuff that the state has to do that you can get a uninspected ticket thrown away, or any traffic ticket, just the real simple stuff? If they mess this up, dismiss.
One of the things that Mark Stevens talks about in his books,
Adventures in Legal Land.
Yeah. he'll say, maybe he doesn't explain that exactly in that book, but that's a great book to read about this, is to get them to answer a bunch of simple questions they'd have to answer if they were there, like what color was the car, what kind of car was it, and if they can't answer those things without looking at notes or anything, you could get them thrown out for maybe it's not incompetency, but for not they can't be a good witness if they don't know what color the car was that was there. Do you guys have any other ones like that?
I mean, yeah, those are kind of technical. So, yeah, if they misspell your name, misspell your address, all these different little things, you could get them on the technicality and get it thrown out. However, they won't make the mistake the second time, or they purposely made the mistake so that they hope you catch it because they realize they didn't really want to do it.
No, I mean on the stand, like you get them in there and you say, okay, so what color was my car that day you pulled me over? If they don't know, then they can't really be a competent witness. That's a Mark Steven thing. I'm not saying I have never done it.
As a position of a judge, I'd just be like, I don't care.
What I really recommend people study, and Mark Stevens has a pretty good layout for it, is impeaching the witness. So one of the things that you can do with a cop when he's on the stand is you can ask the cop, what evidence do you rely on that the New Hampshire Code, for example, RSAs, because they're not enforcing law, they're enforcing statutory code, that what evidence do you have that the New Hampshire Code applies to anyone quite simply because they are standing on the land that we call New Hampshire? Now, I like to say standing on the land we call New Hampshire because I don't like to say somebody in New Hampshire, because the term in is defined in the statutory construction manual as within, and New Hampshire is also defined as a corporation. So if you are within the corporate jurisdiction or the corporate body politic or the corporation of New Hampshire, that's totally different than standing on land. So what evidence do you have that the code you're enforcing applies to me simply because I'm standing on a land we call New Hampshire? And what's going to happen is the prosecutor is going to object.
Yep.
And the judge is probably going to accept the prosecutor's objection and say you can't ask that question. And then you have to object. And they're going to say, actually, you can't ask the cop that question. I forget the exact language they're going to use.
They told me that Jane, the parking inspector, wasn't qualified to answer that question, so move on.
So right there, you've essentially impeached the witness. But get into Mark Stevens stuff about impeaching the witness. There's a lot of great videos on YouTube about that, and practice this, role play it. Even if you make a phone call with somebody, but if you can get together with some people and do some role playing, practice. Somebody's a prosecutor, somebody's a judge, and the thing, even if you just do it with yourself in the mirror, it really helps. And anyways, but yeah, what evidence do they have that their code applies to you is very, very important, and let them present that evidence, because that sets it up for an appeal issue, and you have to object to the judge not allowing the witness to answer the question, because this witness is out there enforcing these codes.
Right.
And so he needs to have evidence that he has that these apply to people, and the evidence does not exist. And another really good right to know request would be a right to know request to the Attorney General for the county or the state of New Hampshire or whatever county you want, or even city, asking them for the evidence they rely on, that simply because you're standing on the soil they call New Hampshire, that their RSA, revised statutes annotated, apply to you. And they'll probably just deny it and say that document doesn't exist. What document do you rely on for evidence? Because yes, the other thing, you could ask them for documents or something on paper, like a roll call log would be a document. So I think that's a real good way to set it up. Now my wife had a court trial here in a statutory court, the lower court, this summer. And I was her asking the cop questions, and I asked the cop that question: what evidence do you have that these codes apply, simply because I'm standing on the land called New Hampshire? And the judge let the cop answer the question, because the prosecutor asked just a couple questions before. The prosecutor asked if somebody's in New Hampshire, does the law apply to them? Is what the prosecutor asked the cop, and the cop said yes. So I was able to take and say, well, what evidence do you have of that? And he said he had no evidence. That was his answer. If you go on YouTube or you go on Free Keen Odyssey, actually, the Noons Go to Court, or Shallon and Jay, I don't remember the exact tag.
Or go to Joe is channel.
But anyways, on
Yeah, but
Odyssey, at that where my wife saw a trial right at the 2-hour mark, right about there, into the video, you can see where I asked a cop what evidence he relies on that the code applies, and he said he doesn't have it. There is none.
It's crazy.
You know what's interesting today in court is the judge brought it up several times. She was like, "Are you impeaching the witness?"
That's weird.
She mentioned that was the first time I ever heard that, and then you mentioned it was interesting, and I said, "No, not yet. I haven't gotten there yet."
That's so weird.
So did you make an attempt to impeach the witness?
Yes, I tried, and I did that by providing a printout of what the criminal trespass law.
Yeah,
Well,
and
before
I said
we
to
get more
him,
into the trial, I think we should ask the caller
sorry.
if that was all you wanted to ask us.
Yeah, that was very informative. I do have some follow-up questions. I don't want to monopolize the time, but let me just ask, Jay, did you consider just immediately filing a motion to dismiss? Like, why wouldn't you just say motion to dismiss, no evidence that the RSA applies was presented?
So in the court, I should have done so we did a motion to dismiss previous to this, to the court trial, and they just denied it because that's what they do. But you have to do the motion to dismiss anyways to preserve these things for appeal, because you just have to be willing to take it to appeal. Is the bottom line. And what I should have done at that exact time was move the court to strike the witness and dismiss the charge, as they stated that there was no evidence that their code applied. But actually, the judge still found my wife guilty of child endangerment. And a whole other thing about this is the cop on the stand said that the child was not in danger.
Never in danger.
Never in danger is what he said. And, I don't know, this was that she let my our daughter, at the time, 2-year-old daughter, take a nap in the car for about 20 minutes while she ran into a store. And some busybody who happens to be a career parasite that works in the county prosecutor's office saw the Health Freedom New Hampshire sticker on my wife's car and the other freedom stickers, and
on the day of a huge Health Freedom rally.
I don't know if it was a health.
It was. I was there that day, and
March 18th was a Health Freedom rally.
Yeah, in front of Concord. So tons of people had to know about this. Oh, there's a bunch of crazy freedom people in front of Concord saying that they don't want to take vaccines, and then she happens to see one of their cars, and then she's like hits the jackpot, and she works for a prosecutor's office.
Yeah, there's
conflict.
A serious conflict of interest. They all collect their pay. The judge, the prosecutor, and their first witness collect their pay from the same entity. They all pay into the same pension fund. They'll all collect from the same pension fund. And I'm trying to find out if somebody could verify this to me. One thing I'm trying to find out is this child endangerment. I forget the exact charge. RSA. I'll have to look it up here. I had read in one newspaper article that there is federal grant money for each time that this child endangerment thing is enforced and there's a conviction.
Just like stupid kids in schools, they get more money.
And so what they do is they either give the police departments or the judicial pension fund or the court or the county or somebody gets some kind of federal dollars for each time that they use this particular thing. And one thing I can tell you about the federal dollars that DCYF gets, for example, and a lot of that goes directly to their pension fund. In fact, the first thing that taxpayers fund is pensions, and then secondary comes infrastructure. And also another thing that we know about is when judges in family court award child support, the judicial pension fund in every state, from what I understand, and I haven't verified this for New Hampshire yet, but this is a federal thing. The feds give 66% of whatever the child support award goes into, and I believe it's every month, not just a one-time, goes into the judicial pension fund. Maybe it's just a one-time shot. I'm not sure. But if anybody had any information on how that worked, and could email me, jay@jaynoon.com. That's JAY@JAYNOONE.com.
Well, thank you so much for the call, anonymous caller. I kind of forgot to ask his name.
Oops.
Yep, oops. We also have another on the line here. Unscreened caller, what's on your mind?
This is Star Child. I'm not trying to call in again.
You're trying to listen.
Break right now. I just wanted to say that I was in terms of joining the organization. It's not for individuals. It's for startup countries or groups that are trying to become independent. So I was
I see.
For New Hampshire to join.
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
That's a good idea.
Not
maybe
individuals, but the Free State Project or the New Hampshire Independence Alliance or whatever the group is
That's actually a pretty interesting idea. So there is a big group of people who in New Hampshire are advocating for independence. So I could possibly pass that information on to some of those people and they could see if they're interested in that. Thanks for that clarification and also suggestion. That could be a pretty valuable thing if they're part of some kind of an alliance. So Joa.
Yes.
I just want to get back into what we were talking about with your trial today. On trial because Don Bolduc attacked you and then said, he hit me.
He hit me.
He hit me. That's how he said it too. Like, I remember it so well. He was like, he hit me. And he's like smiling because it's so fun to get
And then
hit.
after he said he hit me, he goes
3 times.
USA. He's the one that started that.
Oh, yeah, that's so weird.
He started that chant.
That is so freaking weird. Like, what does that have to do with anything?
No, he's just trying to drown out the belligerent, loud, outspoken, disruptive. These are all the words. I'm pretty sure these are all the words the head of security said today, and
About
he
you?
was embarrassed. He was embarrassed for me, the college, the police, the supporters.
Do you need him to be embarrassed for you, Joa?
Yeah, no, yeah. I actually really appreciated him being embarrassed for me because I wasn't.
So go back into this idea of the judge asking you, are you trying to impeach the witness? That seems kind of annoying. It's like, why are you trying to, even if that was what you were trying to do, why does she wouldn't do that to the lawyer, would she? Are you trying to do
I'm
this?
pro se, and I was, look, I'm not
so annoying.
I'm not playing dumb. I just like, as you're in the motions of court, you kind of think you're doing the right thing, and then all of a sudden they check in like, no, we can't do that. Da, 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 da. And like,
well, they like to mess with you because you're not one of the bar people,
right? And the judge was very, very chill. Like, she was just letting a bunch of things that I was saying slide, and the prosecution is like, how many times can we let these leeways go and like, these things slide? And like, he just kept on getting up, and he's like so monotone, like it's psychotic in a way too, like how
much of a drone he is.
Yeah, exactly, a drone. And but I think he has a little bit more going on there because he definitely has psychotic ways at the end there, trying to get physical,
shoulder checking people.
Yeah, well, he tried to walk through me. He threatened to dox me. Like, literally, as soon as the judge stepped out of the courtroom, he started like pulling this junk and hit my friend with the laptop just to hit him as he's going by. Like, not hit him, but like just. You could have avoided your laptop from touching my friend. Like, you purposely pushed into him. And it's just ridiculous. But what was I gonna? Oh, for the impeachment part, I actually had printed out the sort of what's it called, criminal trespass law, and I made it nice and bold and big and printed it out. And when he was on the cop was on the stand, I was like, could you please circle the areas of which I violated the law in this, trespassing law?
Mm-hmm.
And he just circles a couple things, like knowing, like, I forget the other things he circled right off the top of my head. It was actually, this paper became evidence, but the prosecution objected, and it's like, well, we're trying to get legal determinations out of the witness, and I'm like, he already answered. He already answered on this thing, and the judge marked it as evidence, and it's evidence now. And he made legal determinations on the stand.
Yeah, it's a little. You would think that because every time I tried to ask, I mean, I've only been to one. I've only been on trial once and did on trial once in New Hampshire, and was doing it from a perspective of trying to win and being pro se, and every time I try to ask a question like how does the law apply to me, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
They just kept saying objection. She's trying to make the meter maid come to a legal conclusion.
Right.
And so you would think that he would have just objected right away to what you're saying and got the judge to, get you to stop asking. So it seems like she was a little lazy.
Yeah, it was just interesting that I get to repeat certain words I can't say on the air. I'll just say, you F Jew hater.
Whoa.
Okay? I said it over and over again because these are the quotes that they put in of my disorderly conduct. And I asked them, is this fine?
More coming up. Free Talk Live.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Rising fees have made Bitcoin useless for purchases, but Dash continues to have fees less than 1 cent per transaction, and its features ensure Dash is undefeated as the most useful cryptocurrency in the marketplace. From a technical standpoint, Dash transactions are irreversible, and its network is protected from 51% attacks by their Chainlocks technology. There's no need to wait for a confirmation before considering a Dash transaction complete, so it's great for merchants. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at Dash.org. Big thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit Dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Caroline Malone. At least 18 people have been killed and another 13 injured in a rampage across parts of the U.S. state of Maine. A manhunt is still underway 24 hours after the incident to find suspect Robert Card, who police describe as a person of interest. Authorities have released pictures of him carrying an assault rifle, entering a restaurant and bowling alley on Wednesday evening. Maine Governor Janet Mills gave an update to reporters.
I'm so deeply saddened, as is every one of the 1.3 million people of this beautiful state. This city did not deserve this terrible assault on its citizens, on its peace of mind, on its sense of security. No city does, no state, no people. No words can truly or fully measure the grief of Maine people today. This is a dark day for Maine. I know it's hard for us to think about healing when our hearts are broken. But I want every person in Maine to know that we will heal together. We are strong, we are resilient, we are a very caring people.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi met in Washington on Thursday in a flurry of diplomacy between the two nations. Washington wants China to help make sure the Israel-Gaza conflict doesn't spill over into other countries, and Beijing has expressed a willingness to work together. It's one of the highest level meetings between officials from two of the global powers at a time of conflict between Israel and Hamas. Washington wants to make sure that doesn't escalate. The US and China have been ramping up diplomacy in recent months after years of testy relations. If all goes well, it could lead to a visit from Chinese President Xi Jinping, who may attend the APEC Leader Summit in San Francisco next month, setting up a meeting on the sidelines with Biden. A woman in the United Kingdom has been found guilty of handing over a 3-year-old girl for female genital mutilation while she was on a trip to Kenya. It's the first time anyone in the UK has been convicted for assisting in the illegal procedure. Stuart Smith has more from London.
The procedure involves removing the clitoris of young girls, and it happened to this 3-year-old in 2006. The defendant responsible for bringing the toddler to the Kenyan clinic said she thought it would only involve an injection. Although a British citizen now, the defendant was born in Somalia, where nearly all girls undergo the procedure. The court heard the victim only revealed to anyone that she was a survivor of FGM when she mentioned it to her secondary school English teacher at the age of 16. The procedure is usually carried out with high secrecy, and the prosecutor said she hoped this successful conviction would encourage more victims of genital mutilation to come forward, safe in the knowledge they'd be believed and supported. Research from 2014 suggested over 130,000 women and girls in England and Wales have undergone the procedure. Stuart Smith, London.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
Welcome back to Free Talk Live, talk radio that you control. 603-283-6160 is the phone number you can call to get in on the last segment of Free Talk Live with us tonight.
Come on, call in.
603-283-6160. And with you in the studio tonight, it's me, Bonnie.
Joa.
And Jay.
And we were talking in the last couple segments about Joa's trial that just started today. He's on trial because Don Bolduc assaulted him and said that he assaulted Don Bolduc.
Yes, I didn't.
Oh my gosh. But first, we're going to go to your phone calls and thoughts. David in New Mexico, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Who's Don Bulldog?
He is, he ran for Senate in New Hampshire.
He was the youngest police officer in New Hampshire history.
Oh my God.
And
Ew.
and a one-star general in the Army.
And the Eagle Scout.
I'm impressed.
I made
man.
that one up.
I'm gonna have to. I doubt he was an Eagle Scout. Actually, he may be. Those guys are kind of neurotic. I got a bunch of things I could say, but you talked about what is it? The LSD thing. What program?
MK Ultra.
Yeah, MK Ultra. But first of all, I just want to interject, Jay, child trafficking. I appreciate everything you do to plug child trafficking, and I just want to say that people got annoyed with me for plugging it for 15 years, and who's the German Pastor Martin Niemöller? First they came for David, and nobody cared because they weren't David. Then they came for Jay. So it might not have happened. There would have been 15 years of buildup to stopping these people. Head start before they got to you, but nobody cared. So MK Ultra, let me open the window that I had open. This is kind of interesting in case anybody is interested in studying this kind of stuff. I had a relative. He's passed. First of all, I'm not invading anybody's privacy because this guy is dead. He had no children. He had no wife at the time of his death.
I guess it's fair game, right?
Yeah, his family members his family members, his generation and older are all deceased. It's only descendants that are living, and he has no descendants himself. And it's interesting reading because this is a law.justia, that site Justia, JUSTIA.com, cases/federal/whatever else, but you can find it by Googling his name, Kenneth Schloman, SCHLOMANN, double N at the end, middle initial H, because there is another Kenneth Schloman that has some prominence on Google, for instance. But what happened to this guy? This was in the early 60s, and this guy was in the military. He was in the Marines. He was stationed in Alaska. He was in an artillery unit, and he had no previous history of any misbehavior whatsoever. He was in his 20s, I believe. He was married, and the only negative thing against him is that on the day of this incident, which I'll tell you about, which is kind of interesting, he was at an Applebee's or something, watching sports in the afternoon on a day off on a weekend, I believe. And he had like, the witnesses claim he had like a dozen beers over like 4 hours. But I know all kinds of dudes that drink a dozen beers over 4 hours and don't do anything like I'm going to tell you.
Right.
So he's watching a football game, drinking beers, and obviously you got to go pee. And I've had a personal conversation with him before he passed away as to what he thinks happened. He thinks that while he was away using the restroom, back in the day, we didn't protect our drinks, so we didn't get roofied or whatever. And he thinks that somebody put something in his drink. And what happened was he was at the restaurant having these beers, and they did 86 him from the restaurant, apparently, because of his dozen beers or whatever. But he went home. And he doesn't have much. He admits to all of this, but he doesn't have much memory of what transpired, other than what he was told, and he doesn't disagree with any of it. But he ended up going home, putting on his dress blues, and taking his military issued rifle, and he ended up killing 2 civilians. And then it took 5 police officers to restrain him. Five on one dude.
Wow.
And that was back in the day of MK Ultra. And I suspect, it might have been just somebody playing a prank on him, or it might have been, because it checks a lot of the boxes that MK Ultra stuff does. If you want somebody to get out a gun, on some sort of a, prompt, command, trigger, whatever.
During a sports game, maybe? Sorry, I just thought of that. Maybe they wanted to put the trigger word in during the sports broadcast?
Yeah, I have no idea. I'm just giving the evidence that. But what is interesting? Let me double down on the fact that you can read, because Ken, what he did is they held him at Leavenworth for 28 years, and at one point he filed an appeal against the warden of the prison in Kansas for release because it was a habeas corpus, I believe, and so he wanted them to supply the reason why they were continuing to hold him. But it's interesting reading, and it's not all that long. It's you can read it in, 15, 20 minutes of legal reading, and it's kind of interesting. So, but yeah, so that's what I know, and it fits into like I said, checks boxes. It fits into that era, and it fits into that MO, of possibly being drugged with LSD or something else. And the only question in my mind is, was it a prank? Was it a civilian that put it in there as a prank, or was this part of possibly part of the MK Ultra thing?
Well, if it was like an MK Ultra, they definitely got him in at a point where he was in a vulnerable state, and they definitely picked a prime candidate, someone who doesn't have any family members, no spouse, no kids.
Well, he had a spouse. He had a spouse at the time.
Oh, you said he was married, right?
There's no kids, yeah.
Well, that seems like a prime sort of target
He's
for
in the
them.
military,
if that was a thing, I mean, I don't know. I tell you what, I got roofied once.
Whoa.
I was at a Dave & Buster's. I'm not even joking. And I put my drink down. I did a 360, and I picked up my same drink. And then right after I took my next sip, I was blacking out. My friend said that they had to help me out of the place, and I trusted my friend. So I know I didn't do anything stupid, but dang, it's easy to roofie someone. I was out of it, absolutely out of it.
I had a guy I was at a college party with my. I was basically with my sister, and so this was 2000. This was 2000. I was at this college party, and this kid comes up to me, and he was like, "Hey, dude, you want to get with her?" And I'm standing next to my sister. And,
oh my god!
And she's actually not my sister by blood, but and she's and I'm like, maybe. And I'm like, "What you got, man?" And he's like, "Oh, I got some stuff." He's like, "Come over here." So he starts telling me about these roofies and how to use them and how they work. So I was like, yeah, let's go outside and do this. As soon as we walked outside, I beat this dude.
Wow.
Go get my sister. Her and a bunch of her field hockey friends just start kicking the crap out of this kid as he's out on the ground. They took all of his money. They basically strapped him naked. He had like bottles of roofies.
Whoa.
And I'm pretty sure he ended up getting carted to the hospital. He had to. The way these girls were just beating him and kicking him was ridiculous. But he was like literally like, "Hey, dude, you can get her pants. This is how you do it. She won't resist at all."
Oh my god, that's so disgusting.
Yep, and he was. I was like, "Okay, buddy, yeah, let's go outside." So there was a little vigilante justice there,
That is crazy.
I went to a house party here in Keene because we heard a call, Press NH Now, and apparently that there was an assault earlier that night, and that's almost exactly what you described. They kicked the rapist out of their house, and like they kind of roughed them up a little bit, and the police were called for an assault, but that all settled out. Anyways, it was just interesting.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's crazy what people are capable of doing to other people, and just what these drugs can do, and something just gets slipped in your drink. I'm so glad nothing like that has ever happened to me, but it could be something as simple as that, David, that happened with your family member. But it just seems weird. Like, why would some man just want to roofie some other man at the bar watching sports?
Take his money.
That's a good point.
See, the thing with like with the most of the time for MK Ultra, they use LSD.
Mm-hmm.
And LSD, you can pretty much convince someone that's under to do anything you want them to do.
Right. My friends, I never did LSD because I was always afraid to do it because at a very young age, like middle school, 2 of my very close friends did it, and I always heard this story. I wasn't there around them when it happened, but they did it, and then one of them went and was threatening the other with a knife, and like they're both on LSD, and it was like a really scary situation for them. And ever since I heard that, I was like, yeah, I never want to do that. And
I do not recommend it, in my opinion.
So many other people will tell me, oh my gosh, that kid must have had something already wrong with him, like, which could be true, but it's just like, I don't know. It seems like it's a drug I want to stay away from, to be honest.
Good thinking.
Anything else, David?
No, that's it. But it'd be interesting if anybody reads this appeal, if they have any thoughts about it.
Can you state the name of the appeal so somebody can look into it again, just so write it down?
Yeah, I'll give you the title of the appeal, but I found it as simply as Googling Kenneth Schloman, SCHLOMANN. Middle initial happens to be H, but the title of the appeal is Kenneth H. Schloman, Petitioner Appellant versus R.I. Mosley, Warden, United States Penitentiary, Leavenworth, Kansas, Respondent Appellee. And I won't bother with the numbers 457, et cetera, because nobody can follow that anyway.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, somebody might be interested in that. Thank you for the call, David. Yeah, did you have more to say about your trial that happened today, Joa? That's still being it's still in the process. It's not over yet.
Well, it's going to be continued, but the judge is wondering how much more time do you think you're going to need, Joe?
It's like as much as you want. I mean, as much as you need. I can't stand that.
I responded with
like you're wasting her time.
Exactly, and I said as much as it takes to have a fair trial.
Nice.
That's what I said to her. And but also, then she kind of like asked me like a couple more times how much time, and I was like, I don't know. I got 4 more hours of video footage. I don't know, maybe a month. But she didn't like that. I think she wanted me to finish it right there and then. That way she could have dismissed everything. I don't think she wants us to carry on. I think I made a fool of the prosecutor. And oh God,
in what kind of ways?
Should I dox him? Because he threatened to dox me today.
Explain what doxing is. So how can you hurt me by doxing me?
Well, I don't think it's particularly illegal, but I think it's wrong, and I think it's misconduct for a prosecutor to threaten that. But so Jay Noon, what's your middle name? You don't tell me. I'm just saying this is like about doxing. You live here. This is where you go to work. This is where you go to sleep. This is where you go shopping. That's doxing. I'm telling everyone where
so
to find
is you. Take all your information and you publish it.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And I'm letting people know how to get you, right? Like how to confront this MFer and good luck in society. That's doxing. It's actually illegal in some states.
Is this guy's bot? Because you're dealing with an assistant DA, not the actual district attorney.
This is a Goffstown prosecutor.
Okay, so he's an assistant DA.
Yeah, I guess.
So is the guy he's under a George Soros funded prosecutor?
I mean, I don't know. Probably.
I mean,
that's a good question.
How do you even know that? How do you figure that out? I hear, this prosecutor over here.
Well, he's a thug for once.
Well, most of them are.
It's true.
I haven't met a prosecutor that wasn't. Well, that's not true. I did meet one who was like, he was in Palmer Court and he was like, I can't wait to get out of here. I can't wait to be done with this. He's like, I'm not even gonna prosecute your case, and he was just, but he was one of these guys that I talked with him. I'm like, where's the evidence that I'm a person? Your person's defined as a corporation. Your code applies to persons, and he's like, okay, I just can't wait to be done with this job.
Sure, yeah. One last thing here is that what was I going to say? The prosecutor. Oh my God, I forgot. Lost my train of thought here.
Was it about your shiny badge?
No, not that.
Did you get to wear the shiny badge?
I wore it the whole time.
Nice.
Yeah.
For the listeners that don't know what that is, there's this little thing that a lot of people here in the New Hampshire community have, which is a shiny badge that you can wear that says badges don't grant extra rights. Isn't that what it says?
That's right.
Yep.
All right, so I remembered. The judge sequestered witnesses, right? So that they can't talk to each other or the prosecution or me, right? They can't talk to anyone. Press NH now, as soon as we were dismissed for the day and the judge left the courtroom and the prosecutor did his little harassing stuff, and he went into the back rooms of the conference room all the way down the hall. Press went down there with this camera. Guess what was happening?
They were all chatting. The witnesses and the prosecutor.
Oh yeah, the witness that got sequestered, chit-chatting about the case with the prosecutor.
Wow. So that's on camera?
Sounds like you need to send an affidavit to your local state representative and have them investigate this case and call a committee.
I think that prosecutor should be terminated.
And the only way that's going to happen is if you guys do that. You got to do an affidavit, you and the witnesses, and hopefully accompany this video with it.
Let me tell you why it's not going to matter.
Why?
Judge is going to be like, the judge is going to ask the prosecutor, "Did you talk to the witness?" "Oh, not about the case, just about football or something." And then the witnesses, the officer Matthew, whatever. He's no longer an officer; he's retired.
He's going to testify that he didn't.
Yeah, did you talk to the prosecutor about the case? "Oh no, we're talking about football." That's what's going to happen.
Okay,
and nothing's going to happen.
It's okay. So another question for these cops is when they're on the stand: are you taught during an investigation it's okay to lie to someone you're investigating to?
I did do this. I asked, and I got objected by the prosecution, and I was like, whatever. I just moved on because the judge wasn't having anything with it either. I asked them, "Are you allowed to lie? Were you, as a police officer, are you allowed to lie?" And then the prosecutor is just like, "Objection."
And they're there on their authority as a cop. So if they say that they are allowed to lie as a cop, that's basically just throw them out. They're not a good witness.
Mm-hmm. And what's fascinating
They're a hostile witness.
I don't know if I'm going to challenge this, but I was thinking about challenging this. So the cop that took the stand, he's retired, so he didn't dress up as a uniformed cop. But the other cop will be potentially uniformed when he takes a stand. And I will object if a witness is on the stand with a gun.
Why is that?
This is intimidation to the defense. Why is the witness that arrested me, why is this guy with a gun on the witness stand? And I'm disarmed here? This doesn't make any sense. The witness should not be intimidating the defense with this gun on the stand.
Is this a bench trial or jury trial?
It's a bench trial.
So you'll get appeal it to a jury trial?
If necessary. I don't think it will.
Okay, but this is the class what misdemeanor?
A class B misdemeanor.
Class B. So that the appeal is it is an actual jury trial.
Correct.
Yep.
And the other thing is a violation. So disorderly was a violation. I don't get how that works. How can you get just here's a fine? Here's a fine for being disorderly. It's all baloney when they're just doing that, and they can't say you committed a crime. Nope, violation.
They want to just get you to just plead to just doing the violation, so you'll just not take it to trial, and you'll think, oh, it's just going to be a fine. This can all be over.
Well, it's not so okay. I did a violation. Let's just say, but what they did to me is violated my rights.
Right.
I'm not giving a violation charge. I'm giving him a criminal charge for violating my rights, kidnapping me, trying to steal from me, wasting my time, etc., etc. Assaulting me. Well, that was. Putting cuffs on someone that didn't commit any violence,
right,
and just said some words you may not have liked because you were offended and embarrassed. Oh well, welcome to America.
This
assault, isn't North Korea, people.
It's kidnapping. It should also be assault too, because being in handcuffs they have to grab you and force you to put your arms a certain way that you don't naturally want to have them. It can sometimes hurt. I don't know if they hurt you with them. I was kind of going off on not a tangent, but I was sitting there dwelling today while I was doing dishes, thinking about when the cops detained me during the raid on my house, the FBI raid that was on my house in 2021. I was thinking, it's just so annoying because I was never under arrest, yet I was handcuffed for over an hour, and that's just something that you Americans out there listening believe only ever happened to people who are suspected of doing a crime. But I kept asking the guy, can I pick up my dog? Can you handcuff me and I'll stay right here and just let me pick up my dog? And he kept saying, no, don't worry about the dog. As I said, oh, well, thanks. He's just running around in the street in the darkness where I don't know that a cop's car isn't going to hit him. But and I would ask him, am I being detained? Because he had never said I was. And he thought very carefully, and he was just like, you're being restrained until we can find out if anything in the house is going to hurt us.
That's the same as being detained. That's the same as being arrested.
Right. I mean, it's the same as being freaking handcuffed and not able to freely move.
That's right.
Without being accused of even doing a crime. That it's not like I was ever accused even of doing a crime and then they dropped it or anything like that. I was never accused of doing a crime, and they held me handcuffed for over an hour. And then they put my dog in a different car eventually. They like separated us. Like, why can't my dog be in the same car as me?
He's a
we're
witness.
we're gonna share information or something. We're
gonna crack this coconut.
Yeah. That's his name. I just think I'm pretty sure it was you that said it, Joa, that handcuffs they were originally for slaves.
Absolutely.
And it's just inhumane.
Police in general were created for runaway slaves.
Right.
Yeah, the lawyers are the farmers. British Agricultural Revolution is the acronym for Bar Association. The lawyers are farmers, and the people are the cattle, and the lawyers are to keep them in the box. This is why they always want you to operate through a lawyer. This is why they have all this codes and rules and all this stuff for these courts, these procedures you're supposed to follow. They want you to spend $15,000 on a lawyer to defend yourself, or just plead guilty, to a lesser charge.
It is kind of funny how they treat you like you're not a 100% human, so you need someone else who's part of their club to represent you.
Right. They're not part of the bar. Barely human.
And the thing is it's because everybody's essentially presumed as a minor, a slave, property of the United States, and those are presumptions that need to be rebutted. And there's a lot people can learn about that all over the place. But the bottom line is understanding who you are. And when you start signing their papers, asking them for permission, you sort of, make yourself a slave. You actually make yourself a minor by asking for these driver's licenses and, getting a social security number and, filing tax forms. All this stuff is essentially, I call them jurisdictional traps.
I look at New Hampshire. It's a different way of escaping slavery, but the Free State Project has definitely provided that sort of avenue for you to become freer in your life. And I look at like prosecutors as like house slaves.
Oh, yeah,
right? They're definitely not like
free.
They're definitely not free, and they're definitely not at the top. They're just doing the minion work, and they're just obeying so they can collect their pension, so they can hang out and drink mimosas with their buddies.
Yeah, there was some rapper, Mos Def, and he says the real Civil War, the real Civil War isn't between white people and black people. It's between and he doesn't use the word slave. He uses the N-word, but I'll say slave. It's between house slaves and field slaves. Or the next Civil War, he says, it's going to be between house slaves and field slaves. And that's what I told the tax collector in the in the town hall. I says, you're just a house slave. That's all you are.
Nice.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, dang it, I kind of lost it. Go ahead.
Sorry, I would just, since you mentioned all that, I really highly encourage everyone to go look up the Jones Plantation by Larkin Rose.
Yep.
It was pretty good. I really enjoyed it. It's definitely a lower budget, but it's well scripted, good acting, and it really describes how you're a house slave and a field slave.
Larkin Rose was at Pork Fest this year. I got to talk to him a little bit. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, I saw him, but I didn't actually get to go talk to him. I was just busy, but I did want to talk to him. But I remember what I was going to say. One thing that I've kind of realized this year is there's not really white privilege and, white people have it better than other people. I think the people who have the privilege, as far as all of us people who should be on the same playing field, like underling type people, are the compliant citizens. They have privilege. They don't understand what it's like to be attacked by, the media and the government and be, treated as a second-class citizen just for living your life. Free Talk Live. This is going to be the last segment, so I'm not going to give out the number. Go to freetalklive.com.
This is William Chambers. Now a retired insurance salesman, Chambers is just one of over 95% of grandfathers who, according to a new report from the Center of Business Intelligence, secured their first and only job by walking right up to the owner of a business and asking for a position right then and there.
I slammed my fist on the desk and said, "I'm your man." He stood right up He shook my hand and he said, "You come in first thing Monday morning."
According to the report, nearly 36% of grandfathers claim that they found employment by entering a local business with nothing but a nickel in their pockets and a shirt on their backs.